The first day of competition went better than we expected. We'd kind of come in not necessarily with low expectations, but we were just coming in, we were gonna just have fun, like do our best, but maybe just kind of end up in like middle of the pack, maybe get a bit higher if we got our high rolls in. So us ending the day in first by 7 points, like by a pretty big margin, I think was honestly a bit surprising to both of us. I was watching Teamfight Talk Show and I saw like Hyun and Emily putting together their tier list for the duos, and this is even after day 1, and we weren't even in the top 10, and I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, wow, people really are writing us off even after a week of we really popped off.
My favorite duo moment of this tournament was when I was getting quote-unquote backseated by Jirachi. I asked Jirachi in my final board is redeemed or for Mystic Stronger against this Heimerdinger board. It was and Jirachi, I was doing all my roll down, my positioning, and Jirachi's just back there doing all the quick maths, you know. And Jirachi said 4 Mystics better, and I just put it in there, and I ended up winning the lobby.
I love those duo moments like that just because it is a duos tourney. You get those different kinds of moments then from like mid-set finale or regionals when you're just on your own because you have a partner there, and having that extra level of strategy and strategic depth, I think that provides some really cool moments, like maybe like those little backseat moments.
I done so well in previous tourneys without much practice. I actually don't know if like grinding practice actually actively makes me worse, or maybe like it will just actually make me better, and then I'm just, you know, just kind of lazy when I'm actually the best player in the world.
After all that, Buzzy ended up going 2-1-1-2, which I think is better than anyone has ever done in Fight Night even, or like any kind of any 4-game series. It's definitely the best performance anyone's had in one day in the tourney.
Oh yeah, that's because GSS is way more free than Fight Night. It's not even close.
Welcome to week 2 of Giant Slayer Series 3. We're in day number 2 here. It's presented by Wisdom. I'm thatsadmirable, and I'm joined by Bryce Blum, aka Esportslaw. And Bryce, we're at the halfway point of this event here, technically. So a lot of things have been shaken up as we head into today.
Yeah, a lot of movement yesterday, and part of the fun part of the dynamic of this tournament, right, is that the entire field today has only played once, whereas everyone that went yesterday has already played twice. So, you know, when you go to that scoreboard, you look at the standings, you see a lot of folks way ahead of the pack, right? They've played twice as many games, so give us some time. Let's get through all of our games today, right? We saw some trash talking from the Mega Furrets going in, and they were our leaders out of week 1. Let's see if they can get back in the lead at the end of today.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, let's go ahead and take a look at the format and see how things are shaping up here for this event, because we've also doubled up on some of the, you know, the teams and stuff here as well. Usually you're not in a team, but here we definitely are. 32 players overall in 16 teams. Per day, we're going to have 16 of those players, or 8 of those teams, go into 2 lobbies where they're going to be playing 4 games under the same lobby. If you manage to win that lobby, actually a victory of the lobby, your team's going to get $50 in the pocket. Not too bad. Afterwards, though, of these 3 weeks, we're looking for cumulative scores. That's where the top 4 teams are going to make it to the finals. So there's going to be 8 players or 4 teams there. They're going to be playing 6 games. And at the end of that, their cumulative total is going to determine who is winning in that spot. So as we take a look at the teams and see what we have here, you know, we just saw Jirachi and Buzzyboo really talking about how players were writing them off kind of coming into this event. And honestly, they were one of the strongest performing teams, like just flat out, that really I've kind of seen in team events at all.
Yeah, their point total after week 1 was pretty incredible. It was 54 points. It was by far the most that was earned off of either day. So if they can replicate that, it would be truly remarkable. So they're definitely one of the strong teams heading in. We've got some fun internal rivalry situation as we head into today with the Cuties and 8875 in the same lobby. So it'll be fun to see them go to head-to-head. I just love the team format. There are so many interesting dynamics that are layered on top of your typical TFT tournament experience.
Yeah, and you can see what the teams were in play yesterday. So on the right side of your screen there, day number 2, that's who we're going to be taking a look at today. Every single week, we're going to be having both of the days separate 8 teams as we come into this one. So looking at this one right now, 8875, you mentioned Cuties, the Goob team with Goobums on it, of course, my favorite team, and absolutely the favorite team, despite what the scores are and everyone thinks right now. Who are you looking at here for day 2, Bryce? Who is, in your head, the strongest team here today?
I'm going with Ramblin' and Robin from the very beginning of the tournament. They were my pre-tournament favorites. They are an established duos team, actually. Not a lot of duo experience in general, but both Ramblin' and Robin Songs, two of the very best players in North America. That is the Omega Sweaty team, expecting them to clean up what is a very difficult Lobby A.
Yeah, and as you look in Lobby A, you'll notice that Ramblin' and Robin Songs both in that same lobby. The teams will be competing in the same lobby with their teammate on that one. And so looking at the point distribution here, 10 points for first, 1 point for eighth. There is some pretty major differences that can take place here if your team is able to finish very strong or not very strong.
Yeah, the swings of a team format are absolutely incredible because if you go 1-2 in the lobby, that is 18 points. Meanwhile, if you go 7th and 8th, it's only 3. So you can actually have a full 15-point swing between teams in one lobby. We're playing 4 of them today. We're playing 12 of them overall before we get to the finals. So, even for a team like Goobums, right, I know they're your favorite. They came in really struggling after week 1, but plenty of room for them to come back here.
Indeed there is. Lobby A and Lobby B. We're going to be watching Lobby A first, but before we get to that, let's take a look at the prize pool, what these players are competing for, and how they get into this spot. It's $10,000. A big thank you to Riot and to Ball Street for partnering with this event. You take a look at these prizes. First place can be $3,000 for the team. Second place, third place, and fourth place with $2,000, $1,500, and $1,100 respectively on this one. That's a pretty hefty prize that's going into this event. And so for that, we want to be heading over to fantasytft.com for Ball Street here. We want to talk a lot about what's happening over on that side of things. Right now, you can go over there and you could trade with your player scores and predict and try to out-predict the other players there to try to win yourself some of the stuff that's going on. The 100 rare eggs that are in there, the players on the daily leaderboard, the tickets that can be won with the individual contests, all sorts of stuff is going on over there. Like last week, for instance, Ball Street, they awarded over $500 worth of digital tickets during the contests. 100 rare little legend eggs to leaderboard winners, and this week, Ball Street, they're going to award the 1 rare egg to the top 10% of each contest, as well as 5 tickets to each of the top 100 leaderboard winners. So on day 3 alone, Ball Street, they awarded 60 rare eggs to winners. So make sure you head over there, fantasytft.com, sign up and try to get yourself in there and out-predict other players. The leaderboard prize of 5 tickets is still up for grabs in this one, and these are the 2 questions that we're going to be focused on. Who will win Lobby A Game 1, and who will finish 8th in Lobby A Game 1? And I tell you what, Bryce, the second question here, this is the one that I feel like I have the toughest time actually picking.
Yeah, 8ths are so interesting, right? Because there's an instinct to just go with the quote-unquote weakest player in the lobby, but I actually think that's a mistake. I think you need to be looking at the play style. There are certain folks in the lobby that are a little bit more 1st or 8th, and there are some other players that are a little bit less so. So, like, for example, if you go onto the market right now, very few people are predicting that, for example, Ramblin' will go 8th, and I think that makes a ton of sense because he's a really solid player, but more so because he plays super consistently, right? So, meanwhile, you get someone like Soju who might be a little bit more 1st or 8th, a little bit more greedy, so you never know what is going to happen. The other fun thing about Ball Street is that you can trade live as the game is going on, so you don't just have to predict beforehand. You can watch the action along with us and then make your pick based on how the players are starting their game.
That's right. Use the info that you're gathering here as you're watching it. Use that to out-predict other players. And I promise you, listening to how excited Bryce can be about something, that is what you want to listen to. If Bryce is excited about someone's possibility, shove all in that direction. So here we go. We're looking at Soju after we had this initial kickoff here. Soju starting off with what looks like a tier on a Vladimir, and I know that this can definitely influence some things.
Yeah, I mean, there is one build right away, right? The Archangel Vladimir build. Not super popular and not a build that I've seen Soju play before. So I guess he's going to take the more traditional route. A tier is a strong starting item that takes you in really one direction, right? As I think about a game of TFT and if you're a newer player trying to figure out how to approach it, you start with the most basic thing. Are you going to be going an ability power focused composition or an attack damage focused composition? Obviously, he can go in either direction from here, but when you open off with that tier, you're leaning far more strongly towards the AP tree.
Yep, Team 8875 is their team. They came in with week 1 with a 47-point score on this one. They were behind the Mega Furets at 54 points. So Soju, pretty strong week number 1 that he had alongside Prestivat on that one. But kind of looking, at the opening of this position here, a Cloak and a Tier and a Nikos. We are down an item right now, and this is usually a very tough start.
Yeah, Nico's early is such a interesting position, right? A lot of people complain about it generically. I think it's gotten stronger, actually, given the strength of 3-cost carries in the meta right now. So if you get the opportunity to Nico a 3-cost and get a 2-star 3-cost online early, that can be a very, very big deal. Unfortunately, the redeemed tree is not something that's going to be playing one of those, right? Like, none of the 3-cost carries are redeemed units. Lux certainly had its day in the sun, right, earlier on in the set, but Lux not a typically strong carry, not something you would expect to use a Nico on. So I would expect for Soju to play around this on stage 4-1 already, thinking way ahead, Nathan, thinking about maybe being able to Nico a Vel'Koz, for example, based on his board opening.
Yeah, and look at this, a Chalice being slammed onto this Syndra as well. So this pretty much really leans you in that one direction. With a tier left over, I'm looking at like a Shojin being used to finish this tier up at some point. But for the rest of the way, kind of leading yourself in one direction. And honestly, in set 5, it's felt like so far that the earlier you're able to find an identified line for where your team is, that usually ends up helping out a lot. It's not like you have to commit, but if you're able to find it early, a lot of times it's so much easier to find that direction you were actually looking for.
Yeah, one of the strongest and most important decisions that you make in a game of TFT is when to commit to your composition, right? And sometimes that's committing super narrowly to a single composition, like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to play Yasuo and only Yasuo carry from the spot. And other times it's, hey, I'm going to commit more generally. When Soju opens off tier, when he gets dropped another tier, he basically has to play in the AP tree from that spot. And so what he's just saying is, hey, okay, I'm playing AP, I've committed, let's slam the Chalice, it's going to be generically valuable. He's not excited about it, but to be honest with you, he's not excited about his opening. He's just making the best of the situation. I agree with the decisions. Hopping over on board with Emily Wang, who is in the other tree. She probably started sword and got dropped a sword. And so here we are with a Deathblade slam from Emily. So she is in the AD tree. What do you think about this tree, Nathan?
I'm always a fan of the AD tree. For pretty much any game I've ever played, the more that you can distribute auto attacks instead of having to really combo off of the damage that you're dealing, that's my kind of thing. Because if other players are failing to hit those executions, what that means is the auto attacks are taken over. And I feel like Riven is a pretty strong unit for guiding into that spot. It feels like in the mid game that having this auto attack with a stacked high damage ratio on it, Riven's amplifying their own damage in this one. If this unit is able to get strong and stay alive, it's very strong. And look at that Aurelia that's being found. Aurelia is such a strong unit in the front line.
Yeah, Aurelia is, this unit is still bananas and it's been nerfed like 100 times already, so imagine how strong it was at the beginning of the set, right? It is such a generically strong frontliner, and now with the healing on the Legionnaire trait, right, the built-in Omnivamp, I think it's even stronger because Aurelia will kind of ramp up its attack speed, do some damage, and because it has damage reduction built into its ultimate, this unit just becomes preposterously tanky, so strong. Emily scouting around, by the way, taking a look. It looks like there are multiple level 5 players already. Wow. So it looks like Bry and Robin Song's really trying to contest each other for the winning streak, not going against each other right now. Emily does have a quite strong board, but it's not strong enough to deal with Robin, who has an extra unit and has that early Sunfire cape. Sunfire is just such a powerful item in the early game. Getting that burn, the anti-heal going, getting that additional source of damage. Really, really strong composition from Robin so far.
Yeah, 31 to 32. Key UTs is the team that Emily is on. They came into this week with 42 points, sitting in 4th place as they came into this one. A pretty big, solid spot that was there is on a team with Kiyun as we come into this week. So kind of curious to see how these boards are hanging out here, but for Emily's spot, I really have to agree with everything that was just said there. Like, it's unusual that you see this many players kind of hitting level 5 at this stage, players working together and discussing these options, and at the same time trying to find out when they're going to be paired and try to avoid from just smashing each other in those spots. All these little tiny things with team effects, I feel like can sometimes trap you into making decisions that you don't necessarily want to make. So I'm kind of just curious what you think. Like, how often is a team aspect in this really affecting the way that players are playing the game?
Yeah, it comes in bursts, right? So like in that situation, for example, I think Kiyun wanted the sword, right? If you look at Kiyun's spot, it looks like he is forcing rats from there, already has the last whisper slammed, so now is looking for a bloodthirster, wanted the sword, but because Emily also wanted the sword and had that Riven, I think they had a conversation about it and decided, hey, we're gonna allow Emily to take the sword because Kiyun is gonna keep losing, right? He's playing a reroll composition, he's essentially open forwarding, so he's gonna get more bites at that apple, whereas Emily can take that sword right then and there and spike. So that was just one very micro example of the team play, and it's why this event is so fun.
Taking a look over at Bry's board, the Pokegom fan club, their teammate alongside Melt in Heart. And they came into this week with 32 points. They were in 5th place from just the spot that they're coming into today of the teams that are competing. That is a pretty big difference, though. You know, the Coyotes, they were at 42 points. The Pokemon Fan Club, they were at 32 points. So a pretty big difference as we head into that bottom half of this one. But this team is looking pretty darn strong right now. The blue buff and the Morella Namicon that's sitting onto the Senna. I feel like early on, this is one of the strongest ways that you can make use of kind of these castery items if you're not holding like a 2-star brand, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. Senna's a super underrated caster, and I think an underrated unit in general in the early game. It's a very interesting spot. I'm going to be excited to kind of go back and look at Bry's board later in this game because Blue Buff and Morello are two relatively low priority items in the meta. They're obviously every composition could use a Morello in some way. Blue Buff is a little bit more narrow. I'm thinking Teemo and Gwen as users in the late game. So it'll be interesting to kind of track that situation and see where they are able to pivot their board as we go into the late game. They're clearly strong early, but will they be able to actually transition that into a decent board late? As we look at Pressivant's board for the first time, he's also in, well, I'm not going to say the AD tree, right? He's got an early Yasuo, an early Runan's Hurricane slammed. He does have a Riven on the bench, so he's not completely committed to Yasuo from here, but appears to be the only player in the lobby leaning that direction. Okay, so now he gets 2 Rivens. Does he want to contest Emily on the Riven? Also, it's worth noting that part of the fun of the way in which the set is designed is that you have these extremely powerful 3-cost units that can carry into the mid game, you know, and you can use them transitionally to go for some of the 4-cost AD units, right? The Dravens and the Aphelioses of the world, maybe even Lucian, or you can just re-roll and try to go for 3-star, you know, Riven, Yasuo, etc. So a lot of options for Prestivan as we head into the neutral round.
I do feel like the items that you get here from Krugs is going to be like a pretty big difference as well. Seeing a sword alongside the rod here and seeing a glove to come alongside with this, like this feels like you're still pretty open on options as far as Prestivan's side of the board is concerned.
Yeah, open on options, but we'll have to make a decision, right? Is Prestivan willing to continue to not slam items in this spot, right? That's the core question, because if you're playing Yasuo, you gotta slam this jeweled gauntlet, right? And if you're playing Riven, then you do not slam a jeweled gauntlet. It's a very bad item in that composition. Prestivan is I would say a little bit dizzy right now, right? Trying so hard to keep his options open. He didn't make 20 gold after Krugs, which is very, very unusual in the current meta. Okay, so now he's going to hard commit, Nathan. So here we go. Yeah. We are going to make a decision finally, and you know, this is what he had to do. He had to make a decision in order to get clear direction on his game in order to start building his economy, because you cannot afford to be sitting that open for too long, because you will never make enough gold to be able to buy the units you are looking for in the late game.
Yeah, you would have to have such a strong board that it's kind of like preposterous, the notion that you would necessarily need an item. Like, let's say that this was like level 2 Yasuo in play and they had 4 Nightbringer instead. You know, maybe then you don't have to slam an item, but, you know, I think given what we were looking at there, it was pretty on the fence about which, you know, was going to be more powerful. When you saw that item getting slammed, it perhaps could have been a difference. It perhaps could not have been. But as we jump over to Kiyu inside of the board, the other teammate for Kiyutis alongside Emily Wang, this is looking like a pretty nice position that Kiyun is in at the moment.
Interesting. I had the exact opposite reaction. Sell me on this position, Nathan, because I look at this and I say this game is relatively doomed already.
Oh, really? Well, that's kind of interesting to me. What I'm seeing here is that we have 4 Helions. We have a Last Whisper, which is one of the strongest items you're going to have for an AD unit. We have a Cloak already, which is labeling a Bloodthirster. Let's say you can't find a Blade. You have a Glove in the backup in case you find a Tear. And you have another Cloak to open up like Runans or something like that. Let's say you just happen to find 2 Blades here. You have Infinity Edge, plus you have Bloodthirster. I feel like maybe it's the rolls is where your consideration's coming from.
Wow, interesting. I feel like this is like the perfect example of the way in which you and I approach TFT, which is that you're always a glass half full kind of guy. You always believe Mort Dog is going to give back to you. By the time this game is over, he's going to make it right, Nathan. I look at the spot and I say, okay, so he's got Last Whisper, check. He needs a sword. He's already killed a glove and armor by slamming a shroud, which is a pretty weak early game item. We saw him completely whiff the shroud here, right? So he got absolutely no value. He rolled it all the way down, so he's at 0 gold. He has 4 Tristanas, 3 Cannons. He has 4 unslammable components on his bench. I'm not saying it's impossible to come back from here. If his next item components are sword and then bow, and then he gets a Tear for a Frozen Heart, and then maybe he gets Radiant Morello, right? Like, there is a path to success for Kiyun from this spot, but it feels like a very narrow path to me.
See, this is where you can definitely tell that we view the things differently. You said I was a glass half full kind of guy. The glass is always full. It's just a lot of times it's full of air.
Interesting. By the way, Kiyun being contested on the Hellions going into this game by Melton Hart. Melton Hart actually, I believe, played Hellions all 4 games last week, so picking up right where they left off. So not a great spot if you are Kiyun, considering that you are also contested. But Melton Hart did not find really any of the units that he was looking for there, and has 5 Yasuos. So maybe thinking about pivoting to Yasuo. I mean, look, I don't like Kiyun's spot, but I think Melton Hart's spot is like omega doomed. If you're thinking about some live trading situation out there, team, I think Melton Hart going 8th stock is rising fast.
Hey, you know what? I think these are excellent points to be making there. The one concern I have on Kiyun's side is the life total that Kiyun is at. But, given the way that I've seen Kiyun play pretty much at all the times I've ever seen Kiyun play, just feels like they're always hovering at 30 health for some reason. I don't really know how or why, just always there. Over on Ramblin's side, though, it does feel like that Ramblin's about always where I see Ramblin as well, sitting in kind of like that health total that's right in the 3rd to 4th spot, and Ramblin just looking to secure the board spot, make the board as strong as possible, and then somehow find that path. Are you able to play for first, or are you trying to clutch just an extra spot or two depending on where you're at right now? And kind of looking at this board, I feel like that, Ramblin is really leaning into the assassin side of things, but I don't necessarily feel like this is a full commitment to assassins just yet.
No, it's absolutely not. Assassins can be a mid-game transition type of carry situation. It depends a little bit on, what units he's offered from here. He obviously was in a somewhat weak position, to only be at 20 gold level 6 here. He rolled it down, and so I would say his options are a little bit more narrow from this spot than they would be, obviously, if he had, 20 more gold in the bank, right? Because he's going to have to roll more on 4-1 to stabilize, which means he is very likely forced to play around a 3-cost carry. The exception to that might be Jax, which can stabilize pretty hard with just a single Jax. These items are quite good. He only needs a cloak in order to have Bloodthirster. So there's definitely additional paths for Ramblin to take from the spot, and Ramblin, one of the best and importantly from the situation, most flexible players in the game. So there's a lot of different places that Ramblin can go from that spot. Meanwhile, we hop over to Robin. Robin's still 100 HP. He's in the AP tree, and he's thinking about items. No obviously great items jumping out at me from his situation. Which item do you like from here, Nathan?
For me, Frozen Cold. The Frozen Heart of Gold is just such a weirdly strong item. I always feel like this is an item I'm usually pretty excited to see in terms of defensive spots here. And with a tier sitting on your bench right now, this is looking at you need a sword to make a Shojin, and you're kind of set up pretty well. I think there's so many different things that could matter here too. Kind of thinking about that, the Mistral could be one of the best items you have here. It's going to kind of, perhaps sometimes stop frontline stuff, sometimes it's going to stop backline stuff, and it gives you attack speed for if you ever get this Shojin set up. I feel like this is just the strongest, well-rounded item that could have been taken in this spot. But, kind of as you pointed out earlier, I am always like a look to the sky kind of player. I'm just seeing what can give me the most benefit, kind of depending on what other players are doing.
Yeah, I really like that selection as well. I think he was correct. I think it's what I would have grabbed in that spot. There were a bunch of better Radiant items that Ramblin was, or that Robin was hoping to get offered in that situation, right? But when you're not offered an item that clearly works for your direction, and in a situation where you already have 2 carry items slammed, it does not feel bad to then take a more utility-oriented Radiant item. And Zephyr is one of the best generic utility-oriented items. You're getting extra attack speed for your whole team, which is, by the way, relevant regardless of whether you're playing an attack damage composition, because you are getting mana from that attack speed, right? So there is value to it no matter what. And you're knocking up a potentially impactful unit for 10 seconds if you're, scouting and using it correctly, which Robin absolutely is capable of doing. So I think really good selection from him. Meanwhile, we go over onto Soju's board. We talked about it beforehand. I described Soju as a 1st or 8th player, and I feel like he is living up to the hype, Nathan. He is 40 HP going into stage 4. He has 4 draconic units in. He would really like to find, or he's actually already has the 5th draconic unit. He's putting it in, despite the fact that he's 38. He is not leveling, Nathan. He is going to level 8. This man says, give me a first or give me an 8th.
Look, this is just the Soju I was expecting. I was kind of going to try to make this comment earlier, but there's so much we have to talk about here in game one to kind of set things up and kind of get on track for where we're headed here. But for Soju, I just feel like he's always looking at level 9, and it feels like it doesn't matter what his health total's at or where his board's at or anything. It just feels like 9 is just always in the back of his mind somewhere, and that definitely feels like what's happening here. Like we are lining up for 5 Draconic, so we're trying to unlock some golden eggs, and look at the items that this Zyra is holding right now. This is very much a wow, can I find Heimer? Great sort of reaction that I feel like I'm having to this right now. I think Soju, despite the health total, is in a pretty decent spot right here. Like we didn't get to catch what the stimmy bonus was, but I feel like that even though he's losing this round, that his board is still set up to perhaps have like a major momentum turnaround and really change the game.
Oh, it's set up for a major momentum, for a major turnaround. We're about to watch the most impactful round of the entire tournament for Soju. He cannot afford to wait to 4-5 unless he's prepared to go to like 10 HP. So that means he has to level and roll here. He has almost no gold to be able to roll if he levels here, right? So we're going to see he has 10 gold. We need to find a Heimerdinger, or at the very least a Teemo, right? He needs something that's like a serious carry. He doesn't have any Abomination units, right? So he's really struggling. He needs to get something online. Okay. So Soju has gone from a situation that had the potential to be great to now a situation that is relatively doomed, right? He can still get some of these outs, absolutely, but it's a very, very tough spot for Soju. He basically has no front line, Nathan, right? At this point of the game, a Leona 2 and a Set 2 and a Galio 1 just ain't cutting it.
Look, we have 5 Draconic units in play, okay? I know for a fact that at least 4 of these don't care about dying.
Yeah, he does have a lot of units that doesn't matter if they die, but that is simply a testament to how pathetic his board is at the current state in time. And you're right, this is really kind of, we talked about from the outset, this is how Soju tends to approach the game of TFT. It is very entertaining, he gets a lot of firsts. I think it is part of the weakness of his tournament play, if we're being honest with you, because the reality is, when you're playing in a lobby on ladder, you are not playing a bunch of players that are of equal skill level to you, right? You're playing some people who are, but a lot of players that are relatively weak in terms of building strongest board and putting pressure on you throughout the game. And so you can play this very greedy play style and have it work out more often than not, but in a tournament setting, that is very challenging. And so I think, Soju builds a lot of habits on ladder that are not necessarily benefiting him when he gets into this tournament setting. But you know what? He still has 22 HP and a dream. He needs to hit a lot, though. He needs to hit a Heimerdinger, and he needs to hit some frontline. So we'll see if we'll get a chance to do it. Meanwhile, we're over on board with Bree's board. Bry's board, excuse me. I talked about it earlier. I was curious to see where it was going to go. I can't say I had this board in mind, Nathan. Talk to me about what you're seeing.
What I'm seeing is I'm trying to get to level 8, and I'm building the strongest board I can without spending too much gold. And I quite like what I'm seeing here as well. It's kind of weird to see an MF that's holding a Morellonomicon. It's the idea of the healing part is really built into this unit, but this lets you know you don't intend to hold on to this one. You're still getting some burn damage on the Morellonomicon, and the way that these items are built right now, it looks like you have something a bit specific in mind, but I'm not quite sure I'm seeing what the specifics in mind are at the moment. And so that's the part that's kind of interesting to me here. Again, trying to get to level 8, hoping that the stem here from hitting that 40-point threshold is on the way down is pretty good. But what I'm seeing right now is kind of jumping back to the Soju point. There is a Heimerdinger that's in this carousel right now.
Kion's gonna deny it.
Wow.
Oh, you love to see it. That is beautiful. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bry, considering the Gwen winds up not going for it. I think Gwen is really interesting from this spot. I think the blue buff combined with the life blade is probably like the single best 2 items you can get onto Gwen. I think Gwen is a very underrated carry with that specific set of items. Really just going to be looking to play kind of a generic board, right? The new Renewer spat oftentimes leads to 4 Renewer in this situation, holding extra cons. That extra gold is actually pivotal considering the circumstances. So just going to be looking to build kind of a generic board. Obviously, Revenant frontline makes a ton of sense from this position. You want to get Iron in, right, to get the 4 Renewer going. You want to have Heimerdinger in the back line if you can afford to make it happen. So I think there's definitely some different paths. Also buying an early Karma, that makes sense. Certainly can hold the Life Blade as well as the blue buff, but no carry yet. I would say overall these were not the droids that Bry was looking for.
Yeah, these were not necessarily good rolls. I don't think. I feel like that you're spot on with the Revenant frontline. I feel like that's the most common, strongest frontline you can get at the end of the game. It just it takes a lot of gold to get to that point. So you need to be in the game. When you're sitting in Bry's spot at 36 health here, and you're getting checked by Kiyun, who's hit this 3-star Tristana pretty early on, this is a really tough board to fight and a really tough spot to be in, where it's just, how do you get out of this point? It feels really tough. Looking over at Soju's board, I saw a Teemo that was in there. They won their round. Bry here at 23, they need to have a big turnaround take place, and they need to have it happen soon, because, my gosh, this is looking really tough. Who's going to carry all these items and why?
Yeah. Bry could be going 8th in a hurry from this position. And to be honest with you, this is exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of the game, where I was saying, hey, these items are really strong to get to 100 HP at Krugs. And if your goal for the game is to get to 100 HP at Krugs, then absolutely, right? That's a great spot to be in. You should get a bunch of, then you're going to get you're going to wind up in the situation you want to be in, right? You're going to have that 100 HP in Krugs. What do you do after that is the question, and I think we're seeing the kind of downside of the items that were slammed. There's just a very narrow path in terms of what units Bry can actually carry from that spot. Meanwhile, we're on board with Emily Wang. She is playing a Riven carry. She has great items in that RFC, that Deathblade, and that Bloodthirster. Going up against Kiyun, who has the has the Tristana 3 already. We're appearing to see some teammate on teammate action. Just enough. That's best case scenario. When you have two teammates playing against each other, you want to see that very narrow margin of victory, right? Doing the minimum possible damage.
Yeah, and sit kind of coasting at 50 gold and taking your rolls to try to find the spots where this you're really looking for 3-star units at this point. Like this, I feel like this composition has really traced itself out here. The Jax and the Nautilus, they can come into play, but they definitely need to be upgraded given what you're seeing in contention on the board. And so this is just going to be time for Emily, and whether or not she's finding her way through, working towards this 3-star Riven that's in place right now. I feel like really when you hit that 40 that 40 health threshold point, I really feel like that's when your gold really needs to start, heavily being spent to try and improve your board at that point. But really, outside of this, the moving up in level, it's something, but it's not really that much. And so you'll notice here, 2 of the Dawnbringers get cycled out. We have 2 Ironclads go in. That gives you a little bit more gold to work with as well. And at the same time, you're just trying to find these 3-star units. And I feel like that right now, Emily, she's a bit on track for this.
Oh, I think she's way off track from this. She only has 4 Rivens and 3 Nidalees. Thank God that last shop had a Nidalee and a Riven, because she was really struggling to hit. We're already on stage 5-1, so her expected value in terms of these units, assuming she's been rolling for a little while, is more like 6 of each unit. And obviously it gets harder and harder to find them the more of them she finds, because there are fewer of them in the pool. So she can still hit from here. She has 47 HP and 50 gold, right? She has not come close to full sending it, but she's about to take a beating on this fight from Melton Hart's board and drop below the semi threshold, so she'll have that extra gold to be able to roll, and I'd like to see her do that and see if she can preserve those lives, if at all possible, because she really needs to find a lot of Rivens or Nidalees, or this board is going to fall off a cliff. These 3-cost carries are awesome in the mid game. They're okay in stage 4. They are very, very weak when you get into stage 5.
Here we go. She's glancing around the board, seeing if you need to draft through these. Yasuo's going to hold on to 2 for now as you kind of thin this board out a bit. Oh my, this is not the right units. There's the 6th Riven, so we're looking for 2 more Rivens. How long is Emily willing to hang on to this too as well? It looks like she's going to be going for another 50 gold turn here.
Wow, this is super greedy. I think incorrect, if I'm being honest. I would like to see her. More. Okay, roll a bit more. Yeah, you've got to try to preserve your lives at this point, especially with how close the HP is in lobby, right? You've got Soju win streaking at 16 HP. So Soju bottoms out, does manage to stabilize. The top of the lobby is only 55 HP. So Emily is in kind of warring for placement. So the whole lobby is, quite frankly, as we swap over to a matchup of Kyuties versus 8875. We have a 3-star Yasuo against a 3-star Tristana. That Giant Slayer is going to be paying a lot of dividends if he ever actually gets onto the Yasuo. There it is, and the Tristana just shreds through the Yasuo with that item.
Yeah, the Kennen stun there at the end, too, made a really big difference on that one. So for Kian, always kind of taking a look at that Kennen and whether it's able to connect that second time feels like it's such a big difference in how this composition it's going to actually work. But, we're seeing a lot of teams really hit their stride and get developed in this one. Soju still on the win streak here. Bry sitting in 8th, Melton Heart sitting in 7th right now. That is a really tough spot to be in. If you're sitting in those right now, this lobby it's starting to develop a difference between first place and that 4th place kind of spot, but it's still really close to the top half. It's still very close to the bottom half. It feels like Soju is right now the one that perhaps does not belong in that bottom half spot.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, Soju clearly has hard stabilized the board. We talked about it, that he was playing a very first-rate mentality, and if you get one of those legendary carries online from that spot, you can thrive. So Soju absolutely turning his game around. Meanwhile, Robin playing a Karma, not a board we see all the time, not a board that we see as likely to win the lobby, but you know what? He's in HP preservation mode. We saw him streaking early. He's just trying to outlast the lobby. Bry dies in... Is it 8th place or is it 7th place? It depends on where this game goes. Melton Heart started with only 7 HP, so if he loses this fight, okay, I think he has killed enough units officially that even though he is going to die, he is going to either survive with 1 HP or he's going to be out in 7th.
Well, I have bad news for that. Melton Heart is still alive, but Melton Heart and Bry are on the same team at the moment. So that is not where you want to be in that one. We talked about this at the start. Because the teammates are in the same lobby, the last thing you want to do is be consistently finishing in the bottom spot of it. And 8th and 7th is the worst placement you can have, and it separates the teams a lot, and it's a big difference. This is just game 1 of the entire thing, though. There's 3 more games to be played after this one, and so you always have a chance to turn things around and go from there. Looking at Soju's board is what we're going to be seeing here in a minute. But since we looked away from Soju, I think Soju has lost 1 single round after that and has won every single round since.
Yeah, that's a lot of round wins for Soju, right? Let's take a look at the board. So still actually carrying the Zyra, but found that Volibear, which is such an important hit in this composition. Everyone focuses on the carries, and rightfully so, because if you don't get the Teemo, or if you don't get the Heimerdinger online, or maybe a Vel'Koz 2, oftentimes you're just not going to be able to output enough damage to win any fights. But under the circumstances, you know, if you don't find this Volibear, you oftentimes will not be able to stall fights for long enough. By the way, I think Soju's actually full win streaking since we last saw him. That 6 HP is probably just the Teemo that he had to purchase along the way. That rat is making him pay in blood. This will be a really interesting fight going up against a Yasuo 3. It is more teammate on teammate action. Will this Yasuo be able to cut through the front line in order to get access to the back line? It appears the answer is no. We saw that Volibear just massively stall the Yasuo. Here comes the A-bomb unit. There's just so much front line for Soju between the Ivern knock-up, ultimately the Abomination coming out, the Volibear knock-up. There's just so much that you have to chew through in order to get access to Soju's backline. So Soju's still on that comeback path, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very powerful board. You know, you look at all of the CC that's taking place on Soju's side, it's just tough to chew through that front line, in addition to the front line being strong. Just the fact that so many things are stopping you from attacking you. The Teemo slow down, the Lulu sometimes being able to stop things, the fear that the Fiddlesticks can provide, the stuns from the Abomination plus the Volibear that are here, the Zyra tagging you down as well. There's so many things are going on. Like, this is such a strong board, and this is kind of what we were talking to of like the Soju 1st or 8th kind of style. If you just don't find these units and you don't really have good items for it, it just doesn't work. But if you find these units and you have pretty decent items for it, which, you know, these items are pretty strong with all the Thieves' Gloves that I'm seeing here, this is an extremely strong board. Is it able to take out the Riven 3? And I think the big question here is just how much CC is this Riven really gonna you know, have shown to it?
Yeah, a lot, because you add the Zyra on top of it, you gave that full list, and it's just impossible for the Riven to ultimately get access to Soju's backline. Emily is wiped off the face of planet Earth. One of our cuties is down. The other one is in it appears to be a rat-on-rat battle, ultimately does win and eliminates Melton Heart in 6th place. So Emily takes 7th, Melton Heart takes 6th. It's worth noting, by the way, that Soju, we saw when he had that 5 Draconic online earlier, he printed a massive egg. I couldn't tell if it was a 4 or 5 turn egg, but it appears that he got 3 Thieves' Gloves out of that egg, right? Yeah. Because he did not have Abomination items. So this is a very unusual version of the Draconic kind of classic AP plus Revenant units plus, you know, Abomination board, because his Abomination is a full roll of the dice every round, Nathan. What are the Thieves' Gloves rolling on all these Abomination units, and which ones happen to wind up onto that Scion when it comes out of its grave? So very cool composition from Soju.
It's a strong point you make there too. You know, how much of this was like a variant outcome because of the golden eggs that you know, Soju was able to get in this point. And here it is, the level 9. Like, what is this level 9 even providing here too? You're just sticking a unit into play at this point. Like, this is such an interesting thing to me that I always see. It's just like Soju's like level 9 done. Slam it down, you tag it, you stamp it. It's done.
One extra body. We take that extra 600 HP all day, hopping on board with his teammate Precedent, who has a very, very strong Yasuo composition for Nightbringer online, good items on the Yasuo, plus a very scary Rel 2 going up against Kiyun. This is a rivalry we've been hyping up heading into the day. Kiyun has a lot of 3-stars over there. He's got a 3-star Lulu in the back line, 3-star Tristana, and I think a 3-star Thresh as well.
Oh,
but
no.
unfortunately, Tristana just getting tons of CC, and now it's right next to the Yasuo. That Yasuo will obliterate the Tristana and Kiyun's hopes in this fight. Is it fatal, though?
Yeah,
it is.
It's a lot of stuff that's still in play there.
Ooh, and Soju took a perfect loss down to 0 HP. We have our final 3. We have Prestivant from 8875 up against the 2-headed monster of Ramblin' Robin. I said they were the favorite heading in. How does he deal with this 2v1 matchup, Nathan?
That's a great question to ask, because I'm not sure that really you have a way to manipulate your board on this one. I think it's rely on Yasuo to get the job done and hope that Viego can pick something off as we head into this one. Really what I'm seeing that I think is such a big deal here is that 2 teams have made the top 4 at this one. It's the Precedent Soju on Team 8875 and the Ramblin' Robin songs on the team Ramblin' Robin. Like, this is it feels like it's very difficult for 4 specific players to be in the top 4 consistently. So if this is the kind of thing that can rinse repeat itself over the course of the day, that is bad news for the rest of the teams who are competing for that top 4 spot.
Yeah, good news for them as they're looking to catch up on points. This is a interesting fight as we have the Yasuo getting tossed away. Can it get back to the Karma to get access to do the damage? Ooh, the Rel stun comes through, and that is enough, eliminating Robin. Ramblin', meanwhile, wins, and I think that's probably these are our 2 strongest boards. So we have a very interesting matchup. We've got an Assassins versus Yasuo, and this is one of the fun moments in TFT. You get a straight 1v1, you see what your opponent's trying to do, you want to figure out what are your win conditions and how do you deny your opponents. And in this situation, we've got a board where everything but 1 unit, now 2, is jumping, and so it will be interesting to see if Precedent decides to backline some of his tanks in order to try to stall these assassins. Can he get something that maybe CCs the Nocturnes since there's no QSS on it? Here comes the fight.
The Yasuo at the front line as well. It looks like it's going to be able to jump to that front and be a bit protected here, but ends up walking towards the back, and that can be some dangerous news with this one. You see that Viego getting a pickup here, and it gets a steal as well. That Yasuo gets taken down quickly, and this Nocturne is completely unchecked, and Precedent is about to take one of the biggest hits that it feels like you can take in the game.
Yeah, it is a fatal hit. 21 points of damage there. GG to Ramblin'. We saw that spot, not the best spot in the world, winds up committing to Assassins. As we hop over onto the other lobby, we have Goobums fresh off his big camera stream. I'm not going to say a full reveal, but does look very nice with that bleach blonde hair. He is playing a 6 Nightbringer composition with an Aphelios in the back line. He is apparently running over Setsuko's board as we take stock of this lobby. Wait, I take it back. Setsuko is running over a Goobums board. Oh, wait, Goobums was scouting someone else. Okay, that was very confusing. It's the hard part about hopping into a lobby, in a mid-fight situation. So Goobums had already lost that fight. Meanwhile, Setsuko is win streaking. We have Goobums' partner, Renzer, and Pokygom rounding out our top 4.
Yeah, and this is like a kind of an interesting board to look at here. I was watching Goobum stream yesterday where he actually hit a 3-star Aphelios and then lost every round after hitting a 3-star Aphelios from that point. So I'm kind of curious to see, if that was like a positioning difference, if it's kind of an item difference that's taking place here, because you kind of look at the rest of the lobby right now, and it feels like this Aphelios is mightily unchecked. And with these kind of items, he is going to get some big casts off. But look at this Rakan here that has the Bramble
does not want to die.
The Sojin, you have to stun this unit to death in order to kill it, and that's exactly what happens. Renzer gets taken down by Goobums in this spot, and now we're at the top 2, Setsuko and Goobums.
Setsuko and Goobums, a friendly rivalry, part of the young guns of TFT, right? This kind of newer class of player, the younger players, 2 of the best players in North America, absolutely. We saw Goobums scouting Setsuko's board earlier. I get the impression that he anticipated this is his final matchup. So the question is, where does he want to go from here? How does he deal with this? You see a very scary Viego. He winds up hopping in with the Auction, deciding that is a better unit than the Ashe at this stage in the game. He also drops 6 Nightbringers in order to get a Fiddlesticks in, which is nothing right now, kind of a weird swap, and doesn't wind up moving his position at all. The Viego jumps onto, okay, that's really good for him. It's aggroed onto a Revenant unit, not going to be able to steal that Ivern, at least not on the first time around.
Oh,
meanwhile, this Aphelios is slowly but surely ramping up.
And there's a big hit from the Aphelios too, just completely wipes the board.
That's it.
With that hit. You know, it was favored, I'd say, in Goobum's spot, kind of given what the opening for that was. But that's with the 5 Nightbringer cut. It looked like he wanted to cut a 4th Nightbringer and add in the Teemo at this spot as well. It just didn't even have the ability to really hit that secure spot as they wanted, and still able to win the round.
Did you see that? I thought that Sasuke was going to give up the Auction with Deathblade and winds up going back and denying it, because if there's another Auction and he's able to make Auction 2 with Deathblade, this is over. Okay, full transition. Here we go. So we've now moved on to 4 Nightbringer. He's got the Revenant units, extra CC as we head into the final fight. Goobum's feeling very good off of that last fight win, and now the question is just, can he secure the victory here? He also has 4 or 3 Ironclad units with the spat once it goes in play, so just so much tankiness for Goobums.
Yeah, man, just making sure that the positioning is right here. It ends up not moving to Diana. I'm not sure that was intended as the spot here, but this rel is very tanky. We still have the Nightbringer in play. You have an extra couple of pickup units on the back line that are trap clawed, so that Volibear does nothing to them right now, and this board just does not look like it's even getting touched on Goobum's side.
Yeah, this fight is too free for Goobums. The offensive GG, Nathan. You love to see it. Goobums knows he has that win secured essentially from the word go. Very, very clean, easy win for the boy as we head in. We finish game number 1.
Yeah, and that's just like, pretty strong performances on both sides, too. And the other thing that we're seeing there is 2 completely different wins that took place at the end of this. I would say in the lobby that we were on in Lobby A at first, players were hitting their stride very quickly. You know, players were finding 3-star units. Players are having great items. We're having players get, spikes off golden eggs and finding 3 copies of Thieves' Gloves that are happening. You look at the other lobby, it's just pretty straightforward. You have a Nightbringer emblem and an Aphelios with some strong AD items on it. Very different lobbies, and I think gives you a strong context of, the differences that can take place from game to game.
Yeah, absolutely. Every lobby of TFT is so different from the next. Nightbringer emblem is just so powerful in that composition. He's able to get all the way to level 9 off of the 6 Nightbringer trait, drop it, and play strong units. We didn't get to see the whole game, but you can tell from the way it finished, very, very clean performance from Goobums.
Yeah, and taking a look at, this is the one thing that doesn't seem to change from lobby to lobby is the Ramblin' Roblin strong performances here. This is their second win. That's $100 that's been placed in their pocket. If you get a victory in a lobby, you're getting an extra $50 to take place there. So, another strong finish from them. Both of them were in the top 4. But that was our Lobby A score. We can go ahead and take a look at the lobby scoreboards now and see where everything was lining up. And there you get your glimpse of it. And the lobby that we were watching, Ramblin' and Robin, same team. Preston Soju, same team. Those are some strong finishes to start the day.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we were talking about, the swings going in, right? You have one team scoring 14 points, another team scoring 17 points. Meanwhile, on the inverse of that, you had Melt and Hart and Bry with 4 total points. So, a 13-point swing between Melt and Hart and Bry and Ramblin' and Robin songs, and that is huge implications as we had in just only one game of the day, and that is the fun part of the duos tournament. On the flip side, you see Jirachi and Buzzy Boo dominant week 1, heading into the only one game in again, but only 4 points scored in Lobby B, so a very difficult situation for them to start the day.
I've been seeing Jirachi absolutely lobby for the patch that is coming tomorrow to hit today instead. It was not given to that one. And in this lobby, we're seeing Goobums and Renzer able to take a first place lobby outcome for it. So $50 in their pocket as they come into this one. And I feel a pretty much needed strong performance from Team Goob here as they came into the week with less than 44 points, excuse me. That was the addition they had coming, on top of this as well. After their strong finish, they end up with 44 points. They need some strong finishes to kind of, rally their way back into this as well.
Yeah, they absolutely do. As we take a look at the scoreboard for the first time, it's very neatly divided so far. You have all of the teams that played yesterday on the left, all of the teams that played today on the right. No one has caught up yet, but we're starting to get close. You've got 8875 and Ramblin' Robin, both at 61 points. Both need 12 in order to pass Rat Owl, one of the pre-tournament favorites. So very, very difficult start to the tournament for them so far. We're going to start to see these these kind of the Lobby A or the yesterday and today lobbies mix as we go on and more points get tallied up for our folks from today.
Yeah, and again, the goal is to hit that top 4 spot there. There's 3 total weeks of play that are happening. We're in week 2, day 2 of this one. So each team is going to have, after today, an additional 2 days to try to get their way back into that one. Your cumulative scores is what you're looking for in that. But I do want to address, kind of some of the differences that we're seeing in that one. We're at the 61 points for 2 teams now coming into it, and there's still 3 games left. You mentioned they need 12 points. Unless your team gets 7th, 8th at basically every single slot, you're going to be passing that 8th spot if you're at 61 points.
So that means we know they're not going to be in last place heading into week number 3. The question is, how many points will they be able to kind of tally up along the way? Both those teams are very much competitive to wind up at the very top slot. I think game number 2 is ready as we hop on with Lobby B.
And Goobums is who we're going to be starting things off with. That's right, it's Goobums, the person that I will always put all of my stocks on fantasytft.com into, and I will never sell my Goobum stock.
Yeah, Goobum stock did not reward you last week, Nathan, but this week it is a totally different ball game. I'm not positive, but I think it's possible that with 10 points secured in his first game, do you remember how many points Goobums got total last week? It might not have been 13. I think it's possible that Goobums has already secured a better finish today than he had last week just off of the first game. You love to see it.
Look, first of all, you're 20% off, all right? Goobums had 12 points last week.
Oh,
give Goobums a break in that one. But he has guaranteed to finish with more points this week, just from that first place finish. But that's, honestly, Goobums is that kind of player, though. We talk about Soju being a first or 8th kind of player. Goobums is feels really like a first or 8th kind of player. And what we've seen from Goobums in a lot of tournament performances so far is that he really has locked up a lot of firsts. I mean, he has had some strong tournament finishes so far this year.
Yeah, he has had some very strong tournament finishes. One of the better players in North America, going through kind of a bit of a life transition, right? As he's gotten into working full time and starting to figure out how to balance his love of TFT with his other responsibilities, and so hasn't been at, I would say, peak Goobums levels for the entirety of the set. But as we're getting closer and closer to regionals, he's going to have more and more incentive to get back there. So I think it's very possible we're looking at a different Goobums today than we saw in week 1.
You love to see it. Everyone grows up at some point. It took me a lot longer than it's taken Goobums, I'll tell you that much. But here we are, I've made it to this point, Bryce.
Yeah. You're adulting great, Nathan. I'm so proud of you.
Adulting! Not now, Mom, I'm adulting! Hellions with the Knights here, not too bad.
Yeah, Hellions with the Knights. He has an early Ziggs too. It definitely feels like an AP start, given that he started with Rod and then he got dropped a tier, but doesn't feel the need to slam an item just yet, and it appears he's not interested in leveling either. I agree with that, Nathan. I think a lot of people will over-level in this situation. He doesn't really have a great unit to play. I guess he can play a second Thresh. Okay, so he's just going to choose to level, preserve as much HP as he possibly can. Goes for that naked Aurelia, no traits, but just a strong unit.
Yeah, I think Goobums, always is kind of weighing the option of whether or not to slam the item. And he always pays very close attention, like, should I be using this item? And it always feels like he's just watching the fight and paying very close attention and seeing where the interaction is taking place. Should you use it or should you not? And in this case, he's looking at using it on the front line just to make sure that, he's able to perhaps deliver a killing blow to a unit or something like that. This is something that I feel has always been very interesting about Goobums, and kind of when I've heard him talk about things, as well as watched him play the game, all sorts of little things has happened. I want to jump into the Jirachi thing here. I just want to finish this last little point. When I first met Goobums, he was able to tell me how much flat damage, armor, MR, and attack speed a 1-star Thresh in set 4.5 had, and that's when I knew that Goobums was just one of the best. He knew every single thing. I quizzed him on units, and he knew every single one of them. It was unreal. Jirachi with a big smile on their face right now. You love to see it. This is one of the things I've always loved about Jirachi, is that it feels like even though Jirachi has some very opinion-strong things, that just always a strong attitude.
Yes. Jirachi is very opinionated about the state of TFT, but also just a very positive attitude across the board. I completely agree. It's one of my favorite things about them as a player. Starting off what appears to be in a very kind of open fort dynamic, slamming the Last Whisper, Jirachi has been spamming assassin games on the ladder, and it appears that they are prepared to commit to that once again. So get a full lose streak all the way through Krugs, roll down on 3-2 to try to stabilize that early Last Whisper, obviously one of, if not the very most important items onto Nocturne. Assassins are a composition that I think is starting to rise in popularity in North America. It was played heavily in the European Championship, right? We just got our 4 European qualifiers for Worlds, and in general, I think is a comp that is slept on in North America relative to its power level. Jirachi has to decide if they want to make this Udyr 2 doing the right thing, right? Wants to guarantee that they lose across the board, scouting around, making sure that they don't get too strong and accidentally win a round.
Yeah, this is like one of the toughest things I think about the open fort style of dynamic is, should you be stronger or should you be weaker? And the idea is to make the strongest board you can while still just quite not being strong enough to actually win your rounds. Now, I'd say the thing here is if they happen to win the round, they get a pair of Callistas on top of that, and they're still at 20 gold, so it's not the worst outcome possible, but I love that Jirachi did not put an extra unit here. You don't have to have the 4th unit in play. You're just allowed to.
Yeah. Jirachi definitely wants to guarantee making 20 gold, slamming the Frozen Heart as well, hoping that will help them kill an extra unit. Jirachi, I would say, very much does not want to win this round, right? It's the difference between, 6 or 7 gold by the time it's all said and done, right? Losing that win streak losing that loss streak, is so damaging to the building up of your economy, right? You want to get the extra round and extra gold in stages 2-5 and 2-6. 2-6 and 2-7. You also want to make sure you're getting it on the neutral round. So a lot of value in maintaining that loss streak. And for those of you who are a little bit newer to TFT, that streak in either direction is valuable to you. So if you are winning, great. If you are losing, not the end of the world, as long as you understand how to play from that position.
Yep, I think the most value of that win streak, lose streak momentum as well is in the early game, because as you start getting gold going, you kind of get more gold going. It's like the rich get richer sort of idea. Jirachi and Buzzy Boo both in the bottom sections of this right now as well, and I'm kind of curious how much of this is strategy that they've brought into the week. Are they taking these lose streaks early so that way they can find specific items from the carousel, or is this just happen to be like a coincidence that both of them are in these bottom spots? I'm kind of curious to hear at some point. If they're in the interview spot, I will ask them that. But if not, I'll just ask them this week, and I'll come back next week and tell you with it. Right now, looking at Pokegum's spot, the Last Whisper plus a Bloodthirster plus a sword. And let me tell you, Bryce, I love this. I think this smile is very appropriate at the moment. You have a 2-star Udyr at stage 2 that's carrying a lot of strong AD items.
Yeah. Pocky has very clear direction at this point, as does Renzer for that matter. Definitely both will be going into the AD tree. Not a lot you can do elsewhere with that. The Last Whisper is an item that is not super narrow, but when you combine Last Whisper with Bloodthirster, I think it's becoming very clear that Pocky wants to play probably a Jax carry, maybe a Riven is available to him. Draven is not bad from the situation. I found Aphelios to be very underwhelming with Last Whisper, so I would start to lean away from that. I found Lucian to just be generally underwhelming, right? No matter what items you put on him. So I think this is a very strong position that gives Pocky some flexibility in terms of what he carries in the late game, but it's not like he's so wide open that he's looking at everything.
Yeah, and I think that's a really excellent point you make. With the Aphelios thing, it's sort of like was an eye-opening thing to me is the first time I heard someone who is a very strong TFT player say, I just don't think Aphelios is that good with Last Whisper. The damage from Aphelios comes in a spike. He does not generate that spike by lowering your armor. He generates that spike by getting a cast off with a lot of AD tacked on and hitting very hard. So I totally agree with you on what you just said. I feel like the Last Whisper just not an important thing for Aphelios, and that Lucian not that overwhelming to begin with, just very, very underwhelming, I'd say, for the most part here. But for Pocky here, this round is what you're looking at. I'd say that 2-6, this is like a very critical point of the game. It doesn't seem like it right now, but this is now the 5-win streak that Pocky has developed with 20 gold in the bank and some very strong items to give you direction for this one. This is such a big difference now for Pocky.
Wow, and a 5-win streak for Pocky's partner, Rue Loves You. So if you are a fan of that team, you are rejoicing. It is a very, very strong opening position. Rare that you get 2 win streakers because you got such a high chance that those 2 strong boards are going to play each other at some point along the way. But in this situation, the Neanderthals are looking clean at the end of stage 2.
Indeed, Setsuko on their side of the board. A lot of 1-star units that are in place here. A 3-loss streak that took place. So, one of those things where you have the strong opener, and then, right after those first 2 rounds, it's like, nothing really got 2-starred here.
Yeah. Ooh, an early tome is such a big deal, though, right? This item can take in a couple different directions. I think Oh my God! What the heck? What did I just witness?
That is insane! That's not supposed to happen!
Did Setsuko just PayPal Mortdog mid-game? He already has a Nightbringer-oriented board. He already has one Yasuo and a Runin's, the most important item for the Yasuo, already slammed. And then he gets a tome here, Nathan. If he gets Nightbringer tome or Nightbringer Spatula off of this, he is in such a good spot. Okay, unlucky for our friend Setsuko. Actually, this is more than just a little unlucky. This is pretty disastrously unlucky. The only spatula there that you really are interested in taking is the Skirmisher spat, but it doesn't feel very good, to be honest with you, because this comp really naturally fits 3 Skirmishers. Very, very interesting that he chooses to put it onto Yasuo. Huh.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that means that he wants to play Jax from this spot and that he's just going to use Yasuo as an item holder? What's your take there?
I don't know, but I kind of want to discuss the emblem spot there for the the Skirmisher spot, because I was a little bit interested in the Brawler idea. Now, and hear me out on this one, it's kind of ridiculous, but at some point you want a Sejuani in play with this composition. It's pretty powerful. Having a Sejuani and then tacking onto a Brawler to a unit that you need to stay alive feels like a very real possibility for, just kind of going for that Yasuo. It could be that you just don't have enough items that you're relying on the Yasuo to be able to be the direction you went. And that may be like a hedge your bets kind of take on the Skirmisher thing. But onto the Yasuo, though, that tells me that you do not intend to go the Yasuo direction basically at all. So I am kind of curious about that one. Perhaps they just have an experience with this and know it's very powerful. We'll have to wait and see. Going over to Renzer's side of the board now on the Goob team with Goobums, and a fairly strong-looking board here, but nothing that's really too spectacular, I'd say.
Yeah, Renzer is actually probably the most narrow player in the field. Renzer is exclusively playing in this Riven Nidalee composition, so he's going to be playing a lot of Dawnbringer, Sentinel, Splash the Legionnaire stuff, and there's definitely a few different iterations of this board depending on if you get spatulas and what units you're 3-starring and so on, but overall a very, very clear and specific path for Renzer going into the game. So, for him, he only has 1 Riven, but that's good enough. Good Riven items. He's already taken care of that, so he doesn't have to worry about it. 50 gold at level 6, 72 HP, so not bad, right? He's really just trying to preserve as much HP as he can to get to level 7 on 4-1 and then full stabilize his board and hopefully 3-star a ton of different units because that is his style.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't disagree with that as well. I feel like this is very similar to a lot of the games that I experience, where it's like, my board doesn't look spectacular, but I do have a very clear path, and by golly, sometimes when you have a strong start, you have a ton of gold and a lot of health to do it with. So sitting at 72, I think with these items on Riven, something that you're fairly happy about if this is the direction you're going to end up taking. I'm going to take a hit here from Buzzy Boo's side of the board, but nothing like too big to worry about. I'd say with the kind of the Nico sitting there, and again at 50 gold, hitting the 3-3 mark, players' boards do need to be strong, I think, in order to defeat Renzer at this point. And then this is with very few upgrades on the board at all at this point. So none of the items I feel like super stand out to me. It feels like this is time to perhaps start building some utility stuff, or to kind of go that direction where you're like, all right, I'm going to want the Nidalee as well. How many items can I build for that?
Yeah, definitely thinking about either tank or Nidalee items from this spot. I think going for a generic take item here is fine. Actually, one of the compositions that would use the spatula really, really well, because you want to play 4 Dawnbringer, but the Dawnbringer units are not the best, right? You want to playing a Gragas with this composition for a really long time. So if he had the chance to take the spatula, I think that would have been the optimal situation. But Jirachi, who has been forcing that Assassins, is going to be taking that spatula every single time it is available to them, because Assassin spatula is a item that takes that composition from good to great. Meanwhile, we're hopping on board with Rue Loves You. Rue was full HP after Krugs, taking a few hits along the way, right, on a 2-loss streak. Our resident VTuber, which you love to see, scouting around, taking a look at the boards. It looks like maybe this is part of the decision-making from Setsuko, by the way, because Rue already has that RFC slammed and seems very committed to playing Yasuo. So maybe what was happening in Setsuko's brain was just, I don't want to contest Yasuo, I'm happy to use this as an item holder instead.
That's a very, very strong point that you're making from that perspective here. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that Rue is at as much HP as they're at as well. I mean, their board is really kind of unspectacular at this point. The units are great. They're just not 2-star. And when their units aren't 2-star, it's a lot harder for them to win at this stage, because a lot of times players have a lot of 2-star units in play. So kind of taking this hit, like a big hit like this, it wasn't super surprising to me. And this kind of gives you an idea of, where that spot is going to be when you get to the level 7 stage, when you get to that 4-1 mark. And these items not looking super strong at the moment either. I am a bit concerned.
Yeah, really wanted a Yasuo item from this spot. Already has a ton of components, by the way, right? 2 items slammed, 3 unslammed components, plus this Radiant item coming through. Gonna wind up taking the Bramble Vest, which is one of the generically best items that you can get, you know, if you're just in a vacuum. It's a really powerful frontline item. That being said, already behind the curve on Yasuo items, and it's going to be tough with very few components left. So Rue not in the best spot, still capable, kind of high rolling the right items, finding enough Yasuos, and winds up in good position. But in general, not a great spot for Rue with that Radiant offering. Jirachi, by the way, similar situation, not a great spot, not able to get one of the better Radiant items, winds up taking the Radiant Giant Slayer, which is okay on Nocturne, but far from optimal.
Yeah, you know, Jirachi very much on the get to 7 perspective here, and then try to connect everything. The items, I'm a little bit concerned with this one, but honestly, from Rue's perspective, I'm kind of interested in this. You know, I'm reading a lot into the mouse movement here and trying to make predictions on this sort of thing. DoA really taught me something interesting when we were playing some games together a couple weeks ago, and it was that you can put the big defensive items on your carry sometimes. And so, you know, I look at the Bramble specifically as an item for that, like preventing crit damage and also restoring percents of HP, you know, on like a secondary, on terms of seconds, that can really protect Yasuo for a long time when he gets into these weird spots like that. So it's just, I'm not saying it should be there, it's just, you know, something that's interesting. I think it's something worth considering and trying to take into account. As we jump over to Jirachi's side of the board, we're seeing the Assassin get placed onto the Fiddlesticks here. That's a Revenant that's going to help stand in the way for Nocturne at this point, and 70 gold as we go into this 4-1 mark and try to get some things rolling here. But really, to me, one of the big ones is that the Nocturne is 2-starred, there is an Assassin Spatula here, and you have Revenants in place, and I feel like those are 2 very important factors when it leads to an Assassin composition.
Yeah, this board is stable in stage 4 almost all the time, right? Jirachi scouting around, trying to figure out if they need to dip further, seeing a lot of pretty weak boards overall, so definitely not a big deal. Also, Jirachi very happy to be in a lobby with a Yasuo player and a Riven player, because when you have a bunch of people re-rolling for 3 cost, that creates an enormous amount of power for all of those players, because everyone is thinning the pool for the other players. So really not a bad spot from Jirachi, all the way down to 28 HP, so really cannot afford to lose another fight, but shouldn't be losing certainly this fight and losing a lot of fights with that Assassin spat early with the 3 Revenant already. Jirachi is in a very strong position.
Yeah, and I think that particular fight there really says a lot about where you can expect Jirachi to be going from that one. Jumping over to Sarah Lynn's side of the board. And for Sarah Lynn here, I do feel like that's not a matchup you were looking to end up fighting against. It certainly wasn't one of the ones I was hoping for when I play Aphelios. But, you know, being offered not really the best stuff for Aphelios at this point. I feel like something is missing here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible, not great items, right? Really wanted to get a sword here, or at the very least a glove, so you could have some healing, super important for Aphelios, because it will ramp up so much that it can do an enormous amount of self-healing, but unfortunately not offered any of that. You know, doesn't really want to make the Runins because it is going to prioritize trying to get the healing item onto the Aphelios, so this is just an okay board, right? Mediocre front line, mediocre back line. If they go up against a really weak board, Sarah is capable of winning, but overall not a great spot. Meanwhile, Setsuko has full transitioned off of the Yasuo, put those Yasuos back in the pool, and is playing the skirmisher version of Aphelios. It is a strong version of Aphelios. This will ramp up its attack damage over the course of the fight, which is really good. Aphelios, a ramping unit. Definitely not best in slot Aphelios, but quite good, and certainly good enough to deal with the relatively weak iteration of Sarah's board.
Honestly, I'm kind of impressed with the Setsuko side of things with the skirmisher on the field. It's just something I hadn't really considered. It's something that I personally had not seen yet, and it makes a lot of sense. You're just ramping up the damage. I definitely agree with everything you said on the Sarah Lynn side of the board as well, where it's like this board just isn't that strong. But I feel like I want to add the word yet, because it just feels like so many things can happen that can change this board demonstration right now. But really, it's just the Abominations feel like they're holding spot right now. Like this is like a stopgap kind of thing that's taking place. And this is still an Aphelios 1 that's missing an item, and there's just not like a ton of gold in the bank. Like having to figure out how this balance works so that you can get to an Aphelios 2 and change it to where you have a lot, you know, that giant Nightbringer stuff in play and all the units are in the right spot. It just feels like a lot has to happen to bring this team to its composition right now. And I feel like it's not necessarily, you know, set up to really hit that mark.
Yes, I think that's fair. I do not love Sarah's position in this game either. and getting completely run over by Renzer here.
Oof.
Renzer does have the 2-star of everything, 2-star Nidalee, 2-star Rakan, 2-star nothing beyond that, though. So Renzer not in a great spot either, but certainly good enough. Sarah in a tough spot. Jirachi actually takes a loss, as does Setsuko, so our bottom 4 is getting more established. Meanwhile, Pocky has only lost 1 fight along the way. By the way, there is a Yasuo with a bow there, pretty terrifying.
Yeah, and for Sarah, here we go. It's gloves going to be taken in this spot. I feel like that's important for Renzer here. I don't remember exactly what the board position was, so it's kind of tough to say item things. It's, obviously I'm not going to be able to keep track of all the benched items and stuff that's going on here as well. I'm trying to really take a look as players scatter along for us. Thank you, Sarah Lynn.
Can keep track of every single unit's every single statistic. You can keep track of their items. Let's go.
I knew I should have told you that story. It was going to get used against me. It's Demi time.
Okay, a Reforger. I would definitely reforge one of these cloaks if I'm Sarah, because she really, really, really wants a Bloodthirster on this Aphelios. And by the way, this is the unfortunate part of slamming this this Archangel, and why I didn't really love that play. I don't think Archangel was adding a lot of value to her board at the time. And what has happened is now she's gotten the glove, but she cannot make the Hand of Justice on Aphelios because she's already used that item. So not an optimal situation for Sarah. It'll be interesting to see if she uses Reforger. Okay, she's thinking about slamming the Last Whisper. Okay, I don't mind the Last Whisper. I would like to see the Ashe over near the Aphelios, though, so that she shreds through the armor of the same unit, right, that they're attacking, because there's a lot of synergy to that. Meanwhile, Pocky did go for that Jax. We talked about that early item slamming where it could go. Winds up getting the Radiant QSS, one of the best, if not the very best items, Radiant items for that Jax. Not going to get CC'd anytime during the fight. Takes some extra attack speed. Has the Last Whisper to not get stuck. Has the Bloodthirster to heal. It is not surprising that we see a Pocky Gum at the top of this lobby on a 14 win streak, Nathan.
Oh my gosh, that is monstrous. That is absolutely monstrous. But honestly, I kind of want to emphasize the point that you made, because I think you made an excellent point, which is the Radiant QSS that's sitting on Jax right now. My experience with Jax, this is one of my favorite units that's like ever been in TFT in general. The Radiant QSS has been one of the most satisfying items I have ever used on a 2-star Jax, because you just watch him keep going. He just does not stop. And if your opponent cannot blast the Jax or wipe the entire team and have him get super focused, the Jax starts winning. And it is really crazy how strong this unit is when they have a Radiant QSS. And with a Last Whisper and a Bloodthirster, like I just don't see Pocky losing a fight soon.
Yeah, not soon. This is a composition that sometimes struggles to close out lobbies because the power level of a Jax 2 does not match the power level of a Riven 3, for example, or a 2-star Auction or 2-star Heimerdinger, right? So there's a lot of fights that can struggle with over the course of, as the game progresses. But for now, Pocky in excellent shape.
Jirachi's knocked out in 8th!
Oh, no.
Before the final creep round, oh my gosh!
Wow, Jirachi not even getting to see all of their items. A very rough start to the day for Jirachi and for that team in general. Buzzyboo is hanging on at 42 points. They desperately need to get some points out of Buzzyboo this game. Otherwise, the lead that they built up over the course of the entirety of day 1 is going to evaporate here.
Whew, that is a tough one here. And honestly, it's just not something I was expecting to have to mention even as we come into this. We're closing out Stage 4, we're going into Stage 5, and this is really where the biggest, I'd say, changes happen in terms of where the lobby positions are. A lot of stuff takes a long time getting transitioned. Stage 4 obviously does a lot, but at Stage 5, there's no more messing around. You start taking hits, and you start taking big hits because players have had so much time to get in that direction where they're finding their lobby. Hopping over to Buzzyboo's side, we just mentioned Buzzyboo needs to have some strong performances here, and look at how many units are lining up for Buzzyboo right now. Finds the first 3-star. It's going to be Soraka, who's carrying a ton of items at this one. 8th Riven gets found. 8 Aurelias get found. Rolling all the way down. There's the Nikos on the Riven that needed to be used. Don't disagree with that whatsoever. That is also the one I would have done this to. 4 Dawnbringer, 3 Skirmisher, 3 Sentinel, 2 Renewer, 2 Legionnaire. Like, that's just a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, and I was just thinking to myself that this looks an awful lot like Renzer's composition, and you know what? Here they are facing off against each other, except for Renzer has this problem, Nathan. Renzer's units are all this kind of silver-y color, whereas Buzzy has these gold-looking units. I'm pretty sure the gold units are better than the silver. Don't quote me on that, though.
Yeah, well, kind of looking at the performance here, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. We have a strong correlation for this. 100% of the time, the gold units have beaten the silver ones. So that's just what makes the difference as far as I'm concerned on that one. That's just science.
Yeah. Also a good amount of courage, by the way, because even the minimal amount of scouting going into this lobby would have told you that that the composition that Buzzy Boo is currently playing is the composition that Ranger has been and will be playing every single game today. And so Buzzy Boo says, you know what? I don't care. I got an opening for it. I'm going to play this composition. I will stare Renzer in the face and defeat him in Mortal Kombat, and that's exactly what happened. So also just hitting, that helps as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about this spot though. Like, you know, my instinct is always just like take the one that isn't there. It's just, to me, it was like Brawler. This is an extra, 600 something HP that you're getting out of this spot.
God, you
the
love
skirmisher,
the Brawler
I
tone.
can't help it. However, I will say that turning Riven into a skirmisher is a very big deal. Like, this is such a strong difference on this Riven now. Like, this Riven is absolutely insanely scary to be facing.
Yeah. Assuming that the Riven's able to live for the course of the fight, it's going to ramp up a meaningful amount of AD. I would say not the strongest item on Riven. Skirmisher Spatula in general, by the way, not a very good item for those of you who are considering different spatula options, but good enough, I think, is the word of the day, but not good enough to deal with this. That Teemo is laying waste to the board, and the Jax is cleaning up everything, so you know what, Buzzy's got a couple of gold units, but not enough to deal with the juggernaut that is Pokygom. Pokygom, by the way, I made a comment earlier, and we've both done this now about having lost one fight along the way. Pokygom has not lost a fight. Pokygom has just bought Teemos.
Teemo's hurt. Setsuko goes out in 7th place this one. I mean,
Pocky could actually 100 HP this lobby. It could be the Teemo 100 HP.
Yeah, the effectively perfect win.
We count those. We for sure count those.
Yeah, it's like the hashtag sports ball here. It's like the difference between the no hitter and the perfect game. Nobody got on base. All right, like that's the whole point.
Yeah, I don't know, because in baseball you gotta walk someone or hit a batter or something, right? Something has to go horribly wrong for it to not be a perfect game. Pocky's out here flexing on people. Pocky's out here saying, you know what? You can't even do damage to me. Oh, we totally caster cursed him here.
Yeah.
EG.
Well, no. This is just Goobums. There's no curse about this. Is the Goobums curse here? You fight Goobums and things are wrong. That's what this boils down to.
Okay. This is a BG situation if there ever was one, but I'm on the record that if you win a game with perfect HP and you've only done damage to yourself, then we are counting that 100% of the time.
Yeah, Sarah Lynn goes out in 6th place there. Just a really tough spot. The items weren't really panning out for that one. That was one of those spots where it's kind of just like, come on, game. Like, what are you doing? Just feels like kind of a frustrating point. Goobums here, not really surprised, I think, to see Goobums take a utility item at this stage. I've noticed that it feels to me like the stronger players are, the less likely they are to take an item at this point that is not utility oriented. The idea is to just strengthen what you have, because what you have is what got you to this point right now. Goobums collecting all the Iverns as well. Is this just like a Goobums wants a second Ivern in play, or is this like legitimately going for an Ivern 3?
Oh, I'm going for Ivern 3 in this situation every time. Ivern 3 is actually a little bit of a crank. It is an unbelievable amount of frontline with the Daisy situation. So I think in Goobum's spot, worst case scenario, playing 2 Iverns level 9, not bad at all. Best case scenario, you wind up with the golden shiny version of Ivern, which is a lot of fun. Be interesting to see if he can deal with this board. He is on the right side. He swapped and then swaps back, so he's going to get unbelievable access to the backlined units of Buzzy Boo, and boom, the Soraka is melted with a single Vel'Koz cast. Not enough, though. The other shiny unit, the Riven, is taking care of business, and Goobums is taking a little bit of hit. By the way, Goobums did not use Zephyr there. I'm not really sure why. For a second, I thought to myself, oh, this is his teammate. He must not be using it. But no, Renzer is over here dealing a little bit of more damage to Pokygum, and Goobums is, I guess, just saving that Zephyr for a rainy day.
Yeah, I don't mind saving the Zephyr. I think that was a matchup where it was not worth using, because I think that you're going to lose that one anyway. I think hold it. I think so, yeah. There's a Riven 3 with a bunch of damage items on it, and it's got 4 Dawnbringers in play. That's going to connect with the Vel'Koz once, and the Vel'Koz is gone. Just didn't feel like he was going to win that one.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you guys have some, 12-head mental math situation going on there that I do not, because I looked at it and said...
Do you mean age, or do you mean intelligence here? I'm kind of... The age part is more accurate, but I find it insulting.
On the 3-star Riven. I mean, I'm taking that Zephyr on the Riven every time. But, hey, Meanwhile, this is a 3-star versus 3-star battle. We have the Riven and the Soraka going up against the Yasuo and Lee Sin. And oh my god, the Diana ulti just wrecks BuzzyBoo's team. By the way, this Riven is still stuck on this Lee Sin. Yeah. I think this Riven will still be stuck on this Lee Sin in set 6. BuzzyBoo, despite having a couple of 3-star units, is not guaranteed to top 4 in the spot. I say that, but then I almost want to immediately take it back, because unless Renzer has meaningfully upgraded that board, I think Renzer is going to have a tough time in this lobby. So as we take stock heading into stage 6, only 5 players still left alive. We have Goobums playing a Vel'Koz composition, maybe going for Ivern 3. We have Pocky playing a Jax composition, maybe going for Jax 3. We've got BuzzyBoo and Rue Loves You with a bunch of very upgraded units. It is going to be a wild ride. We haven't gotten a chance to look at Renzer's board yet, but Renzer and BuzzyBoo playing the same composition. Can they both top 4 with it?
You know, I'd be kind of surprised right now because the boards are getting quite strong. But honestly, at the same time, you know, I'm looking at this one from Rue. This Lee Sin has a Legionnaire spatula on it, and this is very unusual. The Lee Sin, oftentimes when I see these kinds of spots, just really doesn't have that much, I'd say, sustained pressure that's taking place. But now it's increased attack speed, you have the Warmogs, and you have the Radiant Bramble as well. Like, it's really hard to kill this Lee Sin, and your entire team's going to focus on this Lee Sin if Rue isolates this one at the front. And so this Yasuo, it doesn't really matter, I think, that it's this close to the Lee Sin. I think really the important part is just, are your units going to get overrun and have the Yasuo get targeted? I'd say with this particular position, that can happen, though.
Oh, but a huge Railstone on the entirety of Renzer's team. Renzer, by the way, does have a Riven 3, so it is Yasuo 3 versus Riven 3. The Dawnbringer proc is going. Oh my god, the Riven gets knocked up, and it is enough. The Yasuo survives. Renzer is going out in 5th place. You know, not a bad situation for Renzer, getting contested in that spot and still able to get it. Ooh, Goobums barely holding on for that win against Pokygom. So we have our top 4 rounded out, Nathan. I believe it is 1 player from every team, which is quite fun. Oh, no, I take that back, actually. The top of the lobby is Pocky and Rue Loves You. So the Neanderthals are reigning supreme right now. Meanwhile, we see Pocky going and rolling it all the way down. We talked about this composition potentially struggling to win lobbies. It's a different iteration of it than I have seen before. I can admit to never having seen Skirmisher Teemo be part of the action here. Ooh. Skirmisher Teemo 2, I might add. I'm very, very surprised, actually, that Pocky did not want to move that blue buff onto Teemo. I guess the blue buff onto the Viego is basically just as good, so there's a lot of value there. Maybe didn't want to risk gambling and losing his death cap.
Yeah, kind of interesting spots as well. You know, you also have to make the decision to not use the Nikos there and just take the damage, and I think rightfully so. Pokygom very much going towards the I have all the legendaries board spot there. And so you'll see the Teemo delivering a huge hit that's in this spot.
Oh,
and
the
Viego
Viego
gets picked up by the Viego, does get stunned down, but that Lee Sin, it ends up getting taken down by this Jax, which looks like it's kind of become into like an uncontrollable notion at this point. Fights off the 3-star Yasuo. Holy smokes, Rue taking a pretty big hit in this spot. 16 damage coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I completely agree with the decision to not use the Nico in this spot, because this Viego 2 is such a bigger bigger deal than Garen 2 in this spot. Viego 2 with QSS, so it is guaranteed to get its first cast off at least, and a blue buff. It might steal 2 units before this QSS runs out, and Pocky rightly understanding that this composition was about Jax and it's now about legendaries. Jax alone will not win, but with the incredible amount of utility plus a little bit of damage from Teemo, and now a Viego wreaking havoc in enemy backlines, Pocky is putting himself in an excellent position to be able to win this lobby.
And where to put this Ionic Spark as well. You know, this is not an easy decision, it feels like to me anyway. My instinct was give it to the Viego. But honestly, if Viego can get like a sustain item, that unit's going to become insane. This board, you're seeing how strong it is from Pocky's side. I don't think that Pocky's had anything except a smile so far at this point, but has to knock out BuzzyBoo in this one. BuzzyBoo finishing in 4th. Goobums trying to get the board blazed down as we hop over there to take a peek. But this Yasuo is unstoppable, it looks like, from the remainder of this fight. That Yasuo has to get stunned or it's not getting fixed. I take it back. It gets blasted down by the Vel'Koz.
So much damage from that Vel'Koz by the time it was all said and done. Yeah, I mean, Pocky, you're right, smiling throughout. Turns out high rolling is very fun. I like high rolling too. The question is, can anyone match them? We haven't gotten a chance to take a good look at Goobum's board. He denies the Gunblade, which is, I think, pretty important because you were right. I think if that Gunblade goes on that Viego, then it might as well be GG already. you know, Pocky is in such a clean spot at this point. Not a lot left for him to do with his board. I guess he can upgrade that Garen, and that is all she wrote. Scouting around, trying to figure out. Very important situation for him is basically dodge the Zephyr, if at all possible, right? Because even though you got a QSS on that Jax, you can get it knocked up, and you see him actually benching the Jax, trying to be completely unpredictable in the Jax positioning, which is smart. I think he realizes that it's very hard for him to lose this fight as long as his Jax goes onto the board. Wait.
Whoa.
He is intentionally benching the Jax, intentionally not playing the Redemption, hoping that he can have Rue win a fight and potentially then get into the top 2.
Whoa.
This is some brilliant team play from the Neanderthals.
Wow, that is just that is such a drastic difference that you are just never going to see in a 1 versus 1, etc. event that takes place for this one.
Was it enough? Oh my god, the Viego's gonna steal the Yasuo? Are you telling me that Pocky beats Rue without his Jax? Okay. Alright, well, I guess Pocky is just outrageously strong. Meanwhile, Goobums did defeat Pocky's Ghost. I'm gonna not read too much into it because, you know, it was a Jaxless Ghost. So, you know, very, very different board situation. Is there anything Goobums can do to deal with this? I'm voting no here. I think even if the Jax gets Zephyr, I think Pocky is winning because the 4 Knights are just so good into the Jax because the way, or into the Vel'Koz, because the way in which this works is Vel'Koz ulti is ticking each time, and therefore the 4 Knights are blocking damage each time. So very, very tough spot for Goobums. Can he find a way into a win?
We're going to find out if they can. You saw notice where that Ivern is positioned right now. It's only going to pick up the Thresh, but that still can be a big deal. At Teemo getting a massive hit in the center of the field, but that Vel'Koz getting a cast off as well, completely undisrupted at this point. Gets hit by the Teemo, but there's the A-bomb unit that comes in as well. It's not really getting too much done, but it is really slowing down that Teemo, but I'm noticing the rest of this board just not going anywhere on Pocky's side. This Vel'Koz is absolutely shredded at this point, and that A-bomb does not win these fights.
Yeah, A-bomb does not win these. Goobums has 5 health left. He does go into a neutral round.
Oh my gosh.
You never know. We have not seen if Goobums has the opportunity to unleash the power of the Ivern 3. That's really the only way that Goobums can meaningfully improve his board at this point. I'm not saying I think it swings the fight, but I would like to see it, Nathan.
Well, I think that what Goobums would have not liked to see is the Dragon Claw sitting on the other side as well, or like, you know,
he has nowhere to put it, though, is the thing,
put it
right?
Like in the middle and let the Vel'Koz, you know, get damaged or something. Like, it's just bad news. I think you're right, though. I think the Ivern's like the only thing that can make a difference at this point, unless you just happen to like perfect roll literally everything exactly how as you imagined it. Maybe you could reforge something desperately and have something big happen. But here we go. It's up to Goobums to have to get just everything lined up here in order for this to work. There's an Ivern.
Please?
There's one more to go.
Mortdog, please? Mortdog, please?
Not here.
No.
Okay, you can re-roll with the Volley Bear and then also hit a downgrade on a unit and then the Ivern. That's the only thing that could possibly crop into play at this point. Looking at Pocky's side, oh my gosh, he's denying the Iverns.
Wow.
Pocky knows what's up. Pocky knows what's up.
Yeah, BG Pocky, BG. All right, well,
no, GG. Great job.
The Teemo is getting knocked up. The Viego is in the exact right spot. So, unfortunately, the brand is actually denying access to the Vel'Koz, and Vel'Koz gets a perfect ulti across the whole fight. We might have spoken too soon. There's a lot of extra damage coming out. The Jeweled Gauntlet from the Heimerdinger is doing a ton of work. Vel'Koz is able to cast, kills the Teemo. Jax versus the world. This Vel'Koz will cast again, and it should be enough, although there is a Teemo still alive. Jax gets onto the Vel'Koz. We live to fight another day. He only needs to do it 2 more times, maybe 3 if it's 1 unit losses.
Well,
Pocky finally gets a Radiant Blessing.
Yep.
I forgot about that.
That was the one thing I wanted to mention during that entire side of things, but honestly, it's pretty crazy that Goobums even won that side. I thought when the Frozen Heart got stolen by the Viego, that was going to slow down that backline so much that was enough. But that wasn't enough, and so what that tells me is that Pocky has to reposition this.
Well, Pocky kind of outplayed himself, because what happened was by stealing the brand, there was just a unit blocking the access to the Vel'Koz, and so there was nothing. Goobums is going to get to cheese his Zephyr. Where does he want to go with it? He gets the Garen. I'm not sure that's as high impact. An immediate steal, I think, onto Gwyn back there. I can't tell exactly what that is. Here comes the first all-cause cast. It is directly onto the Viego, but the Viego is going to live this time and get another cast off. Okay, this fight is going very, very differently. Goobums does have another cast onto the Garen now. The Jax is ramping up slowly but surely. Oh my god, the Teemo damage in the back line. It is Heimerdinger versus everything Pocky has left to offer, and it is just not enough, unfortunately. Pocky all smiles as he takes that win. I'm not going to say that it was pillar to post, because there was, there were different opportunities there, Nathan, for some other people to get back into the game, but Pocky really put it on a show and was essentially the strongest player in the lobby from the word go.
Yeah, and I think demonstrating, a pretty large amount of experience there as well. They got to the end of that game and they went, wait a second, I don't need to support this Jax. I just need to get better units at this point. Players are getting 3-star things. You're hitting level 9. Other players at some point are going to be able to hit level 9. How do you defeat this? And the answer to that, just from a kind of generic standpoint is, well, the big expensive units. That's kind of how. And that's really what the board was for Pocky at the end of the game. It was Jax and then a bunch of big expensive units. If you have the time to find all those, you're likely going to win. The issue is having all the time to find all those. So that speaks a lot to, the knowledge that Pocky has for the early, the mid, and the late stages of the game here. Very experienced player, and when they're practiced and they're focused, they're going to be one of the most dangerous players in the lobby.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Pocky showing their kind of chops there and understanding that, hey, Jax is a composition that doesn't often win lobbies, and that's because Jax alone can't. But Jax plus a Viego plus a Teemo absolutely can, as we saw there.
Pocky Gamaru loves you. They take down a win in this lobby. That's going to be $50 into their pockets. Let's go ahead and take a look at these scoreboards now and see how things are shaping up, because a lot of changes have been taking place in this one. Take a look at lobby A. Ramblin again finishing in that top top bracket part of it. Robinsong's not having the best one to go along with that. Soju and Pressfit finishing in the bottom parts of that one, but a lot of things kind of shaking up, I think, in these spots of it. Goobums now, this is a first and a second place that Goobums has had this week. For Jirachi and Buzzyboo, they had a fourth and an eighth place finish on that one, so pretty tough, I think, by comparison of what they had last week in terms of their lobby, but, a lot looks like it's shaking up here.
Yeah, and I'm also looking at Lobby A, where the Cuties, Emily and Kyun, bouncing back after not the best start, getting 14 points in that lobby, so a great swing from them. Meanwhile, Soju and Prestivan, after that, both getting top 4 in the first lobby, wind up both in the bottom for this lobby. So it's always fun to see kind of the points starting to balance out a little bit. You're getting some comeback from the Goobums team, and as well as some of the front runners kind of backing up against the field. That's true across the board, but not necessarily with Ramblin' Robin. Those two sweats are just kind of continuing to clean up. Ramblin' with the back-to-back wins. For my money, Nathan, Ramblin' is probably the best player who is not going to be competing at North American Regionals. Bummer we're not going to get to see him. Such a talented player, certainly among the 16 best players in North America. Exciting to see him doing well in this tournament.
Yeah, 3 wins under their belt as we take a look at that one. $150 in their pocket for the lobby wins that are taking place, and again, starting to really have things mix up here. After just halfway through the second day, they are able to start overcoming the 8th place team from the first 2 days of play. Rat Owl now falls into 9th place, and we still have 2 games to go in this one.
Yeah, those were the 2 pre-tournament favorites, I think, on basically everyone's tier list, so it's very interesting to see them both in the middle of the pack now, but hey, 2 very different stories. Rat Owl already has played 2 more games, so a lot of potential points left out there for Ramblin' Robin to not only kind of skyrocket past Rat Owl, but very easily could get into first place in the overall standings by the time it is said and done.
Still a lot of points to go for that one, but still a couple of games that are left to be played. So now we got 2 games in the bank for day number 2 here in week number 2 of the Giant Slayer Series 3 presented by Wisdom. So we're going to be going to a quick break on this one, but before we do, I really want to encourage you to head over to fantasytft.com and really check things out. You've heard Bryce and I kind of talking about it throughout the last couple of games. Head over there and get some trades and some predictions going and try to out-predict others on there, because there's a lot that's up for grabs in terms of prizes. Get a lot of eggs, get some more little legends. There's a ton of handouts that are happening. If you're like in the top 10% of contestants over there, you don't have to be the one winning the lobby. There's plenty of ways to get stuff, so head over there and check it out. And if you're kind of curious how it gets done, we have a short tutorial video that's going to do some of the explaining to you. It's pretty simple. It's your predictions that are really going to make the difference. Take a look at this video, and we'll be right back.
Fantasy TFT is a free-to-play stock market game where you compete against other TFT esports fans in real time to earn prizes during the live broadcast. Click on the Open tab to see which contests are going on. After joining a contest, you'll start off with shares of each TFT competitor, as well as additional cash to buy competitors with. From there, you'll see a list of TFT competitors and a graph indicating their current prices. Now, this is where your knowledge of TFT comes in. During the matches, pay attention to each player because you can change your mind at any time. The price of each competitor will change based on their performance. Like how someone is playing, buy their shares. Think someone made a mistake, sell them before their stock goes down. Buy low and sell high to maximize your score, and if you can outtrade everyone in the market, you'll walk away with a prize.
Welcome back to Giant Slayer, week number 2, day number 2 here, presented by Wisdom. I'm thatsadmirable. I'm joined by Bryce Blum, aka Esportslaw, and right now Bryce is very concerned with how he dominates everybody over on fantasytft.com. But you know, real talk here, Bryce. We have been seeing some like just absolutely unusual things, I would say, happen in a couple of these lobbies so far. What has really stood out to you thus far in these first 2 games?
You know, it's been fun to see that the 4-cost carries, just the 2-star versions of them, have kind of had their moments in the sun, right? That hasn't been the case in all the different lobbies, but I think there's a general perception from the player base that 3-cost 3-stars are too strong. And I sort of agree with that, but they're not so strong that other compositions cannot win, right? We saw Goobum snowball an Aphelios composition in Game 1. We saw Pocky snowball a Jax composition in Game 2. Obviously, you need to get the other units online, right? You have to get the legendaries and you get the supporting stuff around in order to make it work. But kind of the quote-unquote more standard version of TFT we're kind of building up and you're ultimately playing 4-cost carries, absolutely still viable, capable of top 4 and consistently capable of winning lobbies. So there's a lot of different approaches that you can take to a game of TFT right now, which you love to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great answer to hear on this as well. Kind of a follow up to that, you know, tacking on to that first question. How much of an influence do you think you have of choosing what kind of composition you go based on what other players are doing versus just what the game is offering you and the limitation that you have based on the amount of gold you have?
Yeah, I mean, you have tons of influence. Definitely what the game offers you is going to impact it, right? And what the game offers you is really broad. It's not just what units, it's what items, it's, you know, how high roll or low roll your opener is, so how much HP are you able to preserve? Are you having to roll down at 6 to stabilize? You have to roll down at 7 to stabilize, right? Are you able to go fast 8, fast 9? So the cool thing about TFT when it's in the state like it is today, where it's so balanced, there's so many different viable paths, is the best players can go in completely wide open and then be paying a lot of attention to what their opponents are playing, what the game is offering them in order to make the decisions about what they ultimately play.
Yeah, well, as much rambling as I think Bryce is doing, we're going to be hopping on a rambling side and seeing what the real rambling's all about. Ramblin' and Robin have been absolutely crushing it coming into today. You look at the scores that are just involved with the teams that are playing today that have not played yesterday. Ramblin' and Robin are sitting at 74 points. The next closest team is 8875 with Soju and Prestivan at 66 points. They are 8 points ahead of the second place team that is coming into today. That is a massive difference.
Yeah, that is a huge difference. Really, really strong opening, and so many fun storylines in this lobby that we didn't get a chance to talk about, right? Like you've got the pre-tournament favorites in here. You've got the Kiyun versus Soju rivalry, and their teams kind of going back and forth, and then you've got the final team, which is the relative underdogs in the space in Melton Heart and Bry. And Melton Heart is a player that, when you look at them in comparison to the other high elo players, has a ton of, like, not a ton of games played, but insane stats. And so it's always one I've wanted to, like, watch play more and see if we can go to school and learn. There's a lot of very interesting kind of dynamics when you get into this 2v2 setting. So it's just super fun to kind of watch these lobbies play out. Meanwhile, we're on board with Ramblin', who has dominated 2 wins today with a bow opening. Definitely very strong, capable of going into Yasuo, capable of going into Riven, capable of going into Jax. Also does not have to slam the rapid fire cannon and can just play basically anything in the AD tree from here.
Yeah, wanted to mention, by the way, that if you wanted to get on board with the Melton Heart and Bry and learn some stuff, you just have to join the Pokygom fan club. That's their team name. So here we go on Ramblin's side of things. Well, that's a very drastic change that just took place to this board. I guess this is because of the Ziggs getting found here, like that. This is your 2-star unit, so you feel the need to support this. I guess is what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're looking at here, right? Ramblin' is a player that is almost never open forwarding, right? Like, he is preserving HP basically at all costs. He's capable of doing it, and if he thinks the right compositions are strong, sometimes he'll take that line. But for the most part, he's just figuring out what is the strongest version of a board I can play at any moment in time. Zyra giving Spellweaver trait onto the Ziggs, doing a ton of different work, potentially seeing some important units, so very, very good. And Ziggs, by the way, this is a unit that most people are functionally ignoring in the game right now, right? Because it's not played in the classic version of Hellion Reroll, or the kind of popular version of Hellion Reroll right now. This is just still a preposterously good unit. Oh, that is a big pickup from Ramblin'. He opened bow. He gets a bow dropped. And so he is in a situation where he is now thinking about, is it a Yasuo game? You see him scouting around furiously. Ramblin is very prepared to commit to Yasuo if he's not contested. If he's contested, he's going to go in a different direction. He can play anything from here. He does not need to force it. Okay, so there you go. So he slammed the RFC. He slammed the redemption as well. We have our direction. Ramblin has committed on 2-2. He is a Yasuo gamer.
Yeah, and looking at Emily Wang's board here as we jump over to this side, the 31-32 Kyuties that are taking place here. A lot of units on this bench. I feel like this is a get to 10 gold sort of looking spot. I think if you're on Emily's side of things. I'm kind of curious about this Riven though. Like the items are not shaping up super specifically here for Emily Wang's side. Gonna throw on a Rage Blade. Could have made a difference if this was on a little bit earlier. We'll see. It looks like the Udyr might be able to get through this one alone. But when I have a Rage Blade opening, I feel like if I just don't have another option with my bow and my rod, I feel so obligated and committed to go towards the Rage Blade side.
Oh, this fight is so close. Wow. Ramblin takes the loss. Emily takes the win.
Yep.
And she sells a Riven, an early Riven. That is blasphemy in some circles of TFT.
Give me the gold. We have an Udyr too right now, all right? We have a bootleg Riven.
That is a very bootleg Riven. I think the real influence for her here is that because she wound up slamming the Ginsu's Rage Blade, she is unlikely to want to go into the Riven path. She's also clearly scouted around and seen Prestivant has an early Riven, Soju has an early Riven, right? So there's a bunch of people who are already kind of heading in that direction, and she says, you know what, this unit is really, really strong in a bunch of different contexts, but I think in this spot, I would rather make the 10 gold more consistent value for her.
Yeah. You notice the a little bit of a strong, I'd say, position change that the Olaf took here as well. You know, focusing on trying to beat up this Sunfire Cape carrier with the set. That's a major difference, I feel like, in how this fight could have gone. I'd say like in a normal spot here. Udyr trying to take a walk around, almost through that one as well for Kyun. Just going to take a 1 unit hit here. If you're going to take losses, that's the way to do it early on. And kind of emphasizing on your point and in going in that direction, we're seeing a lot of early 3-cost Dawnbringer units hit a lot of different boards here. And I feel like if I'm in this shape, kind of looking back at Emily's sell there and cashing on the gold, it definitely feels like I want to get away from the Riven at that point because a number of players could be going after that.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of players in the lobby looking in that direction. Getting an early Nidalee or Riven out of the box is among the strongest things that you can be offered in the early game. I think that 3 costs are probably slightly overtuned, both as the 3-star iterations of themselves winning lobbies and the 1-star iterations, right? You just see so much work getting done by Yasuo, by Riven, by Nidalee in the early game. That being said, I love 3 costs being strong in the game. I think the healthiest version of TFT is one in which stylistically, you can play around anything, right? So I want there to be some 1-cost reroll, some 2-cost reroll, some 3-cost reroll. I want 4 stars, 4-cost carries to be good. I want legendary carries to be good. So I think we're really, really close to what I consider to be like a perfect state of TFT, where the game is super fluid, a lot of different play styles can be rewarded, and it's just take what the game gives you. It's really, really hard to low roll in TFT if you are open to all of the different outs in the game, right?
Hey.
Low rolling is what happens when you are not open to a bunch of things, and the game is just not giving you the very specific thing you are looking for.
Look, if everything's broken, is anything broken?
Exactly.
I want 4-cost rerolls and 5-cost rerolls as well.
I agree.
Give me those. Look
I
at this
agree.
Nidalee with the Rage.
Legendary
with a
3
Rage
stars all
Blade.
around.
Holy smokes, Nidalee with a Rage Blade early on, just it feels like it's cheating. Like this unit is so strong with a Rage Blade early if you happen to have a Dawnbringer out in front. Like I saw the board and I didn't feel like Robinsongs had a chance to lose that one just because there's so much damage being poured in there and it takes a long time to kill this Gragas right now.
Yeah, Robin in a really, really generically good spot. That early Bramble Vest will do a ton of work. It will also be valuable late. The Rage Blade is in a really similar position. I think we're already looking at Aphelios, kind of similar to Emily, where that Ginsu's Rage Blade starts to look Aphelios. But hey, there's great other holders of it, especially the legendary units. Everyone thinks Akshan is really good, and rightfully so, an excellent holder of a Rage Blade. I also love Kayle right now. I think Kayle requires narrow conditions. You need insane frontline, and I think she's much better with AD items than she is AP items. So I think there's a lot of good paths for our boy Robin to be able to go. Meanwhile, we hop on board with Prestivant, who is playing his teammate. This is a good situation. Prestivant trying to win, Soju trying to lose, and so they're able to offer each other exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, 10 damage, maybe not what Soju was looking for in this spot, but I think with the 30 gold, you kind of knew this was coming if you're in that position there. But for Prestivant, you get a little bit of a win streak now, getting a couple extra gold. You hit the 20 mark. I feel like that's kind of like your your okay, I feel good kind of mark that really gets hit there. And with 4 Dawnbringer in play, as well as utility items that I feel like can really yield some big value given what I'm seeing so far. There's a Warmogs that's in play, and there's nothing else. Like, this is a pretty low kind of spot to be in, but like a sword could be a big difference here. A pair of swords could be a big difference. A sword and a bow could be a big difference. I feel like you just don't want to see rods right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't even hate seeing rods because at least it would give him some direction, right? What I would hate seeing is more defensive items because he needs to figure out what units to be holding, what path to go. Okay, that sword is enough. A glove and a sword especially, right? He could slam a BT and he has half of a Last Whisper. He could go Infinity Edge if he was like really interested in playing Nocturne from here, for example. So I think a very clear path has now been given to him. And I've been in this situation a lot of times where you're not given that clear path, so I'm sure he is very, very thankful. Interesting he chooses to slam the Trap Claw there. I love Trap Claw as an item. It does work throughout the game. I will say, though, that he just used up one of his potential offensive components in that glove, so really, really relying on getting a Radiant offensive item. If he does not get a Radiant offensive item here, he is going to be in a tough spot.
I also feel like the fact that the Bloodthirster hasn't been slammed here is that this still could open up a direction. You kind of convinced me that seeing a rod wasn't that bad of an idea, where in my head it was kind of like I just don't want to see it because I'm looking at my units, and I feel like this is something I often fall myself victim to, is that I look at my units too much. I don't look at my items enough and understand the flexibility here. If you don't slam this Bloodthirster, this sword could still be a Shojin. The cloak can still be a defensive item to secure that frontline point. You could still hit a bunch of rods and stuff here, so many things I feel like could change in that spot, and that's just good recognition, I feel like, of what you're being offered there. I agree with you. It does shut off that idea of, maybe this could be an offensive item, but I feel like that the openness is, something that is a viable argument for why you would do such a thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And by the way, we've now learned a lot about Preston's playstyle, right? I haven't had a chance to watch him play a ton before, but we've now seen from Game 1 and Game 3 that he really prioritizes flexibility above all things. We saw him not making gold on Krugs and really struggling to commit to a path. And so this is a player that is really trying to go as late into the game as he possibly can to decide his composition. So, you got Rambling out here deciding on 2-2. Preston wants to get to 5-2 and then figure it out. Meanwhile, his teammate Soju knows exactly what he wants to do, was open forwarding, holding Abomination units. He was able to, stabilize, sort of. It looks like he's going to be able to beat his frenemy for the purposes of this tournament, Kiyun in this fight. So Soju now on a 2-win streak, 70 HP. I'm not going to call this board stable because if we're being honest, this board probably loses to anyone that actually has a good board, but he should kill a meaningful amount of units, and he should be able to econ up, especially since he has the Draconic trait already. All right, he does not have the Draconic trait, and I take it all back. His econ is fine, but not amazing.
Yeah, so that was the thing I wanted to kind of mention a bit, was that, I feel like on 3-2, if you haven't had Draconic in at all, it might be a little bit too late for that, and this is coming from someone who basically tries to go Draconic every single time the opportunity is offered. It's like 4-3, and I'm like, oh, Draconic, I found an Udyr. I feel like it wasn't necessarily the direction to go, and I think that the MF pair was really some strong recognition from Soju, realizing that he needs to find someone to hold these caster items and to hold them well, and that was not in place with the Draconic spot. With the MF, though, you can have a real chance of shredding enough units here that you're just not going to, fall to 36 health by the time you hit level 7. Of course, I say that, and they queue into a Nightbringer board, and nothing really seems to happen to that degree. Just taking some more big hits as we go through this. 10 is really that mark where it's just too much, and I'm a little bit concerned with my board presence at that point. Soju, they're very used to being at this stage. They're trying, I think, to take advantage of the 40 point difference. Like, as soon as you hit 40 health and you get that reward, a lot of things can change here. So I'm looking at this board from Soju, and I'm thinking to myself, just how on earth can they improve this to be the strongest casting board possible? I'm seeing a Shojin get picked up at this stage, and you have a pretty strong front line right now.
Yeah, Shojin is excellent. It's going to make this MF way more scary. No traits on the MF, right? No Cannoneer and no Forgotten trait in. So this is just kind of a naked item holder at this point. And you know what? In that situation, getting the Shojin is going to allow this to cast earlier in the fight, potentially cast multiple times. So Soju's board did just get a lot better. But hey, like you said, this is a player that is very comfortable playing in these spots. Some people are not. Some people like to try to play for ahead and stabilize. We just saw him lose to Ramblin'. a totally different approach, right? Soju's board was weak on 3-2. He knew it. He chose not to roll. He wants to get to 8. Ramblin was weak on 3-2 and said, hey, I'm going to roll as long as I have to in order to stabilize this board to make sure I don't go 8th place, right? So he rolled it all the way down. He was 10 gold on that stage, right? But he had a Yasuo too. He had some upgraded frontline units, so he got himself in a decent position. Meanwhile, we hop on board with Kiyun. Kiyun has... what is his board? Kiyun. Wait, no. He's looking at Melton Heart's board.
Yeah,
he's trying to trick us. And Kiyun's a rap player too, so it could have easily been that. So it looks like Kiyun is contesting Soju, right? Does not have the Abomination online, but does have a upgraded Callista plus a brand pair. He's got a backline Trap Claw slammed already. Kiyun, I would say, is in a very, very tough spot. His economy is not great. Level 6. Wait, we gotta see. Okay, yeah, level 6, 30 gold. Does not have good items, does not have A-bomb in yet. You know, I don't know if there is a line available for 8th place in this game. My money is currently on this man.
Wow. I will say that if you intend to get A-bomb, that the covalent spark is a pretty strong item. That being said, you don't have the A-bomb right away. So I am pretty concerned with Kiyun's spot here. Usually when Kiyun's in the spot and they're taking a lot of damage at this point, it's because they've kind of intentionally done that, and so their economy is like popping off. Right now, it looks like Kiyun has just had a tough time finding ways to do anything to the board that are super relevant.
Yeah,
that
he
to me is a major concern.
He rolled for sure, right? To be 40 gold on 3-6 means that he rolled at least 10 gold, likely much more on stage 3-2, trying to find a single Nunu or a single Fiddlesticks in order to get the Abomination online. And that would have really stabilized him, right? Because that Sunfire onto the Abomination would have done a lot of work. So, unfortunate situation for Kiyun, right? Talked about, hey, low rolling is when you don't see what the game has available to you. That is it's a TFT platitude that is true in a vacuum, but is not necessarily the case, right? Kiyun, very good player, was probably doing the correct thing in terms of what units he was looking for on 3-2 and just was not able to hit. Potentially could have played the spot differently, but who knows? We get to look at it very early, 3 items, and not bad items for him because this composition can always use more tiers, but definitely not ideal either.
I mean, this is a lot of tiers. Like, I'm starting to kind of think of tiers in a different direction too. Like, my gosh, that's so many tiers. I think that hitting this package and getting extra items, that's a pretty big spike and something that you can really use to swing back the momentum. But it just feels like there's a lot missing in the spot. Tome could make a big difference as well.
Plus a Bramble.
This is interesting now. I'm very curious to see where Kiyun goes with this and what they can do to make a difference with this board. I've noticed that as I'm watching TFT players, in the last week or so as well, that a lot of players have been waiting on their tome. They're not using the tome to help them give direction. They're using the tome to try to finalize the direction. And so here, having this saved and go through the roll and then look at the tome, I feel like this is a pretty wise choice here from Kiyun. Finds a Lux, but is a Lux going to be worth it? Decides that it will be. Takes out the Draconic unit in this spot. And it looks like Kiyun is going to be going from this spot and really trying to make something happen here. So Bramble feels like the definite slam that's taking place. And then the other ones, I feel like maybe you're waiting one more round, but it feels like there's the blue buff on the brand, excuse me. And so now, how is this tome getting used? Kiyun has still held this tome. This is very interesting to me.
Yeah. I don't know why he's holding the tome, to be honest with you. A Spellweaver spat or an Abomination spat in this situation would add a lot of power to his board. Sometimes you like to redo your board. So the thing about holding tome, right, is that what it does is you get 2 guaranteed traits that were on your board last round. Right, and so Kiyun has narrowed the type of units that were on his board, which makes it more likely he's going to find the type of tome that he is looking for in the situation. But he traded a lot of HP for that, because I think a Spellweaver spat or an Abomination spat potentially could have given him enough power to maybe swing the round. Well, probably not Spellweaver spat, but definitely Abomination spat would have under the circumstances, because it would have allowed him to get Abomination online. So be interesting to follow to see where he goes from there. We get Emily scouting around, seeing multiple AP players. Man, I think there are 4 Abomination AP players in this lobby, because I didn't see what board she was looking at, but it was someone that was not Sojun or Kiyun who had a very similar spot. Meanwhile, Soju, it is 4-2, and he is level 8. There is a Heimerdinger on his bench. He must have bought that at the last second, not able to get it in, because that Heimerdinger one is definitely better than Vel'Koz one with these items.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, to me, classic Soju. Somehow at level 8, somehow with a Heimerdinger, and just the right items in place as well. You know, Soju does a lot of work, I think, to get to this point. I think they have just a pretty strong direct line of play. Emily taking a hit here, but you know, I really have to emphasize what you were just talking about with so many different AD and A bomb players. I'm sorry, AP and A bomb players that are throughout this lobby right now. It feels like it's pretty unusual. But this is kind of like one of those influences, again, that the game provides.
Oh, no.
And what I'm looking at here is with all these items that are really taking place here, this is going to be a very strong lobby. Like, as players hit 40, they get all these extra items, and these are pretty big spikes for some players.
Yeah, huge spikes. Really unlucky for Emily because she already has all of her offensive components spoken for, right? So she really, really wanted to find defensive components here and just not meant to be. She is able to remove her Vel'Koz items and therefore wind up with a better version of Vel'Koz, right? That Ginsu's Rage Blade is okay on Vel'Koz. A second Jewel Gauntlet is much better, though.
Yeah, and with the Shojin equipped to the Radiant Shojin, it's like 15 additional mana you get per hit on that one. Like, this Vel'Koz is casting very quickly, and if this Vel'Koz gets a second cast off here, it's because of that Shojin. And look at how much damage this cranked out as a result of it. Like, that is such a big difference. It's like it's holding 2 Shojins and 2 Jeweled Gauntlets.
Yeah, really, really big deal. She can find one more Vel'Koz. We are really cooking with gas. In fact, as we head into this carousel, I expect her to prioritize Vel'Koz the unit over all things if there is one, but there is not, sadly. There is a Volibear, which is a really, really big deal. We talked about it earlier. Everyone thinks about the carries in this composition, but the Volibear, that is among the biggest spikes you can get, and Emily says, thank you, lobby. Yes, please. I would like that unit.
Yeah, that's you saw the mouse do a circle there on that board as well. That was a victory lap that mouse was
And
doing.
she smiles, too. She says, oh, this is pretty good. Now,
it's set in now. This was perfect.
Yeah, it's a tough spot, though, right? Because she really doesn't want to give up Redeemed because she's carrying Vel'Koz, right? She had a Heimerdinger drop Redeemed, put in the Volibear, no problem, right? But she would have to drop one of her upgraded units. She is flat broke, right? Because she rode all of her gold. So she's going to wind up giving up the Ivern. That is a somewhat big deal because she doesn't have Invoker anymore, but hey, she does have, like you said, that Radiant Shojin, which is really, really valuable. Meanwhile, we're on board with Bri. Bri winds up getting the Lucian 2 at level 7, doing anything they can, desperately looking to stabilize. 6 Sentinel board. This is a board that if you got last patch, you felt pretty good about. This patch, Sentinel just kind of feels underwhelming to me. Have you had any success with this on ladder yet, Nathan?
I didn't have any success with Sentinel even when it was big. Like, it was right at the start. I believe it was you and Frodan were helping me kind of understand some of the compositions, and it was right when, like, this Warmog, Bloodthirster, 1-star Galio thing kind of got discovered, where your carry was carrying the Warmogs, and so it got the Sentinel buff at the start, and you cranked out a lot of extra damage. That was the success I had with Sentinel, is before pretty much anyone knew it was happening, because y'all had dug this information up just out of nowhere for the spot. But for Bri, you know, I will say that I'm not impressed with a 2-star Lucian. However, if a 2-star Lucian's what you get in order to fight back, you know, that's what you get to fight back. It's very clear that Bri was rolling quite a bit here, and I'm not sure, you know, what they're passing up or what, you know, is in these spots, but it looks to me like the items are kind of tough, and it looks to me like the composition really is, you know, this is what you were presented with. So I don't think I can fault anybody for being in a spot like this. Sometimes you just got to play what the game gives you.
Yeah, that's super fair. And we haven't gotten to see the line, so it's always impossible to do too much criticism. I will say that Bri's item situation is very confusing to me, and this is the second time we've looked at the board. Game 1 was very similar, where I just wasn't sure exactly what path they had in mind. Slamming items early is great because it puts a lot of power. Oh god, the Lucian just completely whiffs the ultimate. That's a feels bad situation. Ramblin is just gonna run over this board. This Lucian is scary at this stage, but not scary enough as just gets taken down, and Bri down to 1 life. Just to close loop on that thought, Bri is slamming items so aggressively that I think it's becoming very, very challenging for direction. Also, unfortunately, we're getting way too many offensive components, so just no defensive units, just no defensive items, no utility items really even on this board, and it's just not an ideal situation for Bri. But hey, might be able to outplace Kyun. You know, Kyun down at 7 HP. Unclear if Kyun has been able to stabilize, but you know, differently from how Soju was positioned in Game 1, where it said, hey, if the right units fall, Soju can stabilize from here. Did not feel that way about Kyun's board. Kyun was really back against the wall.
Yeah. I'm just kind of looking at this spot right here, and it's like, you know, it's tough to really say anything about the items because, let's say you disassembled everything, including the Radiant item. like, how could you piece this together? Like, this feels like this, the most efficiently pieced together way I could see of these items. You just don't have any defense offered to you. And when you don't have any defense offered, sometimes you got to create defense. And the way to create defense right now looked to me like 6 Sentinel. That kind of creates some defense. Hope this Lucian connects. Really, the last fight, I think, was decided by the fact that half of Lucian's ability was hitting units, and the other half was not, because the very slight different direction that those shots fire in. And so when it's connecting with half, that Lucian's not going to dash. He's going to stand still and really do it. And so I think you end up kind of whiffing on that spot. And then really, this is the fight. Is Kiun going to get knocked out here? Are you able to win a fight in this spot? I feel like the Lucian is in a reasonable position for this. That Lee Sin is what's going to be dragging the attention here. And so can it stay out of the beam of this Vel'Koz? Apparently not, because it is right in the spot where that Vel'Koz is going to beam down and hit that Lucian. So that is bad news. And I think that that Bry is pretty much just kind of donezo here. Oh, down. Wow. I'm sorry, down to 2. Excuse me.
Only 2 units left alive, right? You have the Scion and the Daisy, right? So only doing 2 units worth of damage. Bry, I think with an interesting adaptation, right? It is somewhat logical when you see a bunch of Vel'Kozes that you say, hey, I'll put it in the middle of the board and be safe. But the reality of the situation is middle is actually often not that safe. Depending on how your front line is placed, Vel'Koz will oftentimes just beam down like a ranged carry in the middle of the board, as we saw there. So, you're actually, if you want to be safe from Vel'Koz, you need to find a way to like second row your carry on the opposite wall, or just same side it, right? Like, and that's easier said than done because there's so many Vel'Kozes. It's a very tough positional challenge. But I think part of the underrated aspect of Vel'Koz as a unit is that it is very interesting in terms of it's not just where do you put your backline carry, it's also where's your front line, and thinking about what unit the Vel'Koz is going to then target and where the beam will go as a result. Meanwhile, on board with Prestivant, he is re-rolling, playing, one of an interesting iteration of the board, actually. Doesn't have the Sentinels, only 2 Dawnbringer as opposed to 4, only 4 Rivens as well, so a meaningful amount of HP for Prestivant, but not a great spot.
Yeah, it's kind of an unusual situation to be in, where it's like you really only have one direction I feel like you could kind of go at this point. And with 50 gold, I feel like that, Prestivant's doing a reasonable job here, and then you're also going to get a spike at items at some point when this shows up. Kiun going to win the round in keeping alive at this point. But Prestivant, I feel like with 50 gold here, is still not in that bad a spot. You were talking about in the previous game where I had mentioned it looked like somebody was kind of okay, that they were just behind on finding 3-cost units. And that does feel like where Prestivant's at right now. So that is a little bit with raid mines. Corn.
You're good.
Yeah.
I think one thing that Prestivant was trying to figure out there, and I saw him like kind of almost some self-flatulation there, is figuring out. I think he was maybe thinking about pivoting, right, holding these extra forgotten units and thinking about maybe putting the items onto Draven. But the problem is, if he wanted to do that, he needed to sell the Riven, put the items onto one of his his other copy of Draven, and then he could pop off the Thieves' Gloves. But at this point, he's trapped. Finding another Draven 2 is going to be impossible from this situation. So he's kind of stuck with the horse that brung him, if you will. I just think it's really, really hard to find 5 more copies of Riven from this situation. So I'm just not sure where Prestivant goes from here. Where he goes, at least for now, is a fight win, though. Able to clean up. This Yasuo player does not have Yasuo 3 or Lee Sin 3, so relatively weak board. And that's part of the interesting complexion. You have so many people re-rolling 3 costs. All of a sudden, Stage 5 boards aren't necessarily as strong. Sometimes people hit ahead of curve and they're there, but a lot of the time you wind up with a few players that are, still kind of saving gold, waiting to get the stimmy, waiting to spike in Stage 5. Very interesting, kind of change the dynamic of TFT as a result.
Oh my gosh. Breast event. What you looking at?
He's thinking about Frozen Heart. He's thinking about Jeweled Gauntlet. Where does the Jeweled Gauntlet wind up going? On Fiddlesticks, I guess?
Ooh,
I mean, Fiddlesticks can be a carry. Oh, he just wants the Garen. Okay, so he's ready to pivot into the 4 Dawnbringer version, so he can drop the Ivern, play the 4th Dawnbringer. Okay, that makes sense. He's going to cycle the Shroud. Decent items onto the Draven. He did find a couple more copies of the Riven. So, getting closer, still not perfect. Meanwhile, we're on Robin's board, excuse me. Scouting around, he sees the Vel'Koz. It does not look like it's a fake. Robin's board very clean, by the way. An interesting frontline, backline dynamic. We saw Goobums talking about this yesterday during, Ray talking about this yesterday during his winners interview. There's a playstyle that's rising where you just play Teemo in late game comps as just kind of a secondary carry and also as a utility bot, right? People think really highly of Frozen Heart as a late game item in particular, which is slowing attack speed by 25%. Teemo slows attack speed by 50%. So if you have a Teemo with blue buff and it's casting a couple times, it's kind of like Frozen Hearting your entire enemy board. It's like having a Radiant Frozen Heart, Nathan. I love this unit. I think it is drastically underplayed, and I'm loving the innovation that is coming kind of midway through the set as a result of that. We had a couple big knockouts, by the way. The Cuties are out in 6th and 7th place. Tough lobby for them.
Wow. Look at that. Kyun and Emily Wang end up going with 7th and 6th place over that last spot. With Robin Songs here, they had an unbelievably strong fight in that previous one. Melton Hart sitting up with the only big winning streak so far. But we're looking at Robin Songs, at 42 with that one additional lobby that they actually won. They lost 2 of this before this. They still have not hit that 40-point mark. And look at how strong this board is right now. Like that rail is so difficult to kill. And with all of these events here, it's really tough to have that Aphelios not be able to make just a big, strong chance to really change some stuff.
Yeah, and you also see Robin just beautifully scouting around, and he's constantly making sure that his Aphelios is on the right side. By the way, this is why a healing item is so important on Aphelios. This unit was so close to death, but because it's ramping up with the Ranger buff and the Ginsu's Rage Blade, not to mention the Titan's tankiness that he's getting, he just winds up in a position where the Aphelios can attack so fast that it can out-sustain. As long as you don't have an enemy carry alive, Aphelios is oftentimes literally, 1v3, 1v4, 1v5 at the end of lobbies. So Robin putting himself in an amazing position. Like you said, he has so much potential power out there. We know he's gonna get a few components from the Radiant Blessing whenever he dips below 40 HP. He's basically pre-leveled to 9, Nathan. He's in such a good spot to cap out his board. He could easily wind up 2-starring Teemo. He could easily wind up playing a Heimerdinger in the backline if he wanted to. He can upgrade his Volibear. Just so much work for him to do. 50 gold starting his level 9 roll down.
Wow.
This is terrifying for the other players in the lobby. Yeah, no reason to make this Ashe because he's got an Auction. 2 auctions. Whew.
Holy smokes, this is so strong.
He skips the Heimerdinger, which I agree with. I think under the circumstances, he does not need another backline carry. He's still rolling. Interesting to see him just going all the way down. He actually, by the way, is able to give himself the Radiant Blessing with that Teemo, so he's going to get that Power Spike next turn no matter what. And getting offered a Bloodthirster here is huge because he's going to wind up with an Auction too, most likely, and he's going to be able to use that as another carry.
Melton Hart only at level 7 here with 40 gold in there, so we have to find out if this Tristana is really going to get things done. Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, Bloodthirster, and wiped out that back part of this. Holy smokes, this is so strong from Melton Hart's spot. It's kind of crazy how important that the Radiant Infinity Edge is in comparison to the rest of things here. But Robin Song's taking a big hit, is going to get some Radiant, the package here for hitting that 40. That health of 40 point and lower, and so we'll see if that makes any difference.
Offered?
It's a Bramble and it's a Shroud as well, too, though. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Like, this is pretty crazy. Finds the Teemo getting up to level 2.
Yeah.
Gonna go with the Shroud.
And an upgraded Diana. Everything on his board upgraded except for the 2 units he has on the right, so he has pairs for what he needs. He smartly stops rolling, starts scouting around, not that he had any gold left to roll. He gets kind of a generic reposition, and that's all she wrote. He's in a very good position for this Shroud. Interesting that he chooses to Shroud from the Volibear as opposed to Lulu. Lulu would have been a better Shroud, but he values the defensive stats on the Volibear. Interesting adaptation from Robin. Wow, that Diana just crushes his team, though. Look at that Teemo. The rat is in the middle of the board getting chopped down by the Yasuo. Diana casts a second time off of that Shojin. All of a sudden, Robin, from in a position to win the lobby, is going to be eliminated here, Nathan. Wow. It is a tied for 4th place. Both Ramblin' and Robin are out. Prestivant is out. It is Soju in 2nd, Melton Hart on the Rats in 1st place. Soju has his work cut out for him here. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how he is able to defeat this Hellion board. The problem with Hellions is that it's functionally an assassin-based composition because the Tristana is jumping in the backline and the cannon is getting access to the backline. He does not have a Guardian Angel onto his carry. I'm surprised he didn't full corner. I think in this situation, unless Melton Heart did not scout, he did not. Okay. So there is a chance that Melton Heart's Kennen and Tristana are going to go onto this Lux instead of onto the Vel'Koz. Is it enough, though?
Well, we're going to find out. This Tristana ends up jumping out of the way of this Vel'Koz, but here comes
the A-bomb is a heat-seeking missile!
Wow, that's such a big deal, but this Tristana jumped into the back right corner, and that's enough to really survive on this one. So Melton Heart still at level 7 at this point is going to win this fight, it looks like. But, oh, that's so close. Soju jumps down to 5 health, Melton Heart at 44, and this is a really tough one for Soju to come back from this. He has to win at least 3 of the fights in a row. Melton Heart needs to fight 1, and Melton Heart's about to hit level 8 and add something to the board here. I think Soju is in a really tough spot.
Yeah, Soju is in a very tough spot. The only reason he won that fight is because he so thoroughly outpositioned Melton Heart, right? We talked about it. It's functionally assassin-based composition, and Soju said, okay, you want to assassinate something? How about Lux? Have the Lux, right? But the thing is, and this is my beef with Hellions as a whole, it's not a very thought-provoking composition. All he has to do is scout around and make sure that his Kennen, or really just most specifically his Tristana, is on the correct side so that it jumps, and it will assassinate that Vel'Koz every single time. So all he has to do is make sure that he's doing that correctly, and he's fine. He's going to actually tech up to 4 Spellweaver here, dropping a Volibear. I'm not sure about that. Melton Heart chooses not to reposition once again. So once again, the Kennen and the Tristana are going to jump to the other side, but is it enough for Shoji to win again? I don't see it, because this time the Abomination is going all the way to the other side. He's able to get that Tristana safely DPSing, and it will eventually aggro onto the Vel'Koz. Soju is going to lose, so Soju, able to make both those fights close. He positions very cleanly in them. I would also say that Melton Heart was a little bit AFK there, not very interested in repositioning his composition. He knew he had that one in the bag, Nathan. The Rats, when you're ahead of the power curve, just too strong, easy lobby win for Melton Heart.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that one has to do with a couple different factors, which is number one, if you're the only person going for the Tristana at 3-star, you're going to find it pretty soon. If you find it pretty soon, so much of it after that is depending on how strong the other players are getting. If players are not getting 3-star units in play, like say like the Riven or the Nidalees or what have you, it feels like it's a lot harder to beat that Tristana than if you're just going strong things like getting to level 9 and having things happen. The Tristana is just very big and delivers a lot of damage. And so this is, again, kind of like a very tricky difference. We know that the Tristana thing is extremely powerful. We know it's a very consistent and easy to find team. And in that particular game, if you got that Tristana before others did, you're just likely to win it, and that's exactly what happened in that one.
Yeah, Hellions are a composition that caps out among as highly as any board in the game. There are certain boards that have good matchups into Hellions as the game goes along, but none of them in this lobby. Hellions were making very, very quick work of all these backline AP-oriented compositions, not to mention Robin's, backline of Helios. So Soju's able to kind of eke out a second place. I don't know that he actually had the second strongest composition in the lobby. That was going to be very positioning dependent. A lot of folks were kind of similar in power levels. It was kind of Melton Heart and everybody else in that lobby. A very, very easy win for the Rats. I, for one, am very excited that a B patch is coming. I am ready for that composition to be nerfed.
Yeah, we saw Melton Heart able to get the second win in there for that team, $100 in their pocket. You get 50 if your team is able to win one of those lobbies. So that's 2 lobby wins that they have had in there. On the lobby A with Melton Heart taking out the win in that one. Take a look at lobby B. Setsuko, Buzzyboo, Pokegam, and Goobums all in the top 4. Jirachi, Serlin, Renzer, and Rue Loves You in the bottom 4 of that one. And again, it just feels like that every single game there is some sort of difference in the way that players are going. It's like a player will have a strong finish in a game, and the game right after that they have kind of a weaker finish. It feels like everything's kind of balancing out when you look across the board at all of these.
Yeah, it turns out when you get a bunch of really, really good TFT players in the same lobbies, a lot of the time it'll be variable based on what outs they wind up hitting and how strong they wind up getting. So good to see Setsuko take that win. Setsuko been playing very, very well today. Goobums with another top 4 also been playing very well. Bit of a bounce back game for Jirachi and Buzzyboo as they're both able to get, I think it was like a 3rd and a 5th there. So not bad results for them, starting to put a couple points on the board. But the win was Brontosaurus Setsuko with that W. I believe his first lobby win of the day.
Yep, and you're going to see it here. The Bronzosaurus with Setsuko and Sarah Lynn. That's their first lobby win that's taken place. $50 going into their pocket for this one. And still like a lot of stuff that can happen to give their team some bigger results in that spot. But we have one more game left to play here on week 2, day number 2 for this one. And you can kind of start to see where all of these points are going. So right now, Ramblin' Robin, they're at 84 points. So we're going into, in order for them to hit that top spot right there, they need 12 more points. That's an average of 4th place on both of them in order to match that 96. So that means that's a really tough spot for them to be in. So I'm looking at, the players who are in top 4 and then the players who are kind of working their way towards from this day number 2. And it feels like that Wide People Happy and Pogo, that they just had some massive changes and some massive differences on those first couple of days.
Yeah. I mean, Wide People Happy and Pogo are, it's a lot of points. Same thing with We Are going 8th. So it will be interesting to see if anyone is able to pass them. Ramblin' Robin certainly capable of doing it. Have had multiple lobbies today where they both top 4. All they would need to do is top 4 together, and they will be there. I think the only other team that mathematically could get first is 8875. I think they need a first and a third for 17 points to do it. So time will tell. Both of those teams are in the other lobby, so we're not going to be watching anyone who has a chance of getting into first place. But hey, this isn't about getting into first place, and we've seen this time and time again in TFT tournaments. When you're in the qualifying stages of a tournament, first place is fun. Enjoy your bragging rights. It bears almost no resemblance to what winds up happening when it really matters at the end. So for these teams, yeah, go for your first place. Why not? But this is just about getting into the top 4 and getting into our final week, and that's what everyone is so focused on. A lot of games left to go, right? We're still only in week 2 of this thing. So even if you're at the bottom of the standings, get your points, go on to next week and be happy with it. Yeah,
I mean, there might be a point where you have to have a bunch of strong wins going into week number 3, but that to me is that's like the standard kind of tournament package. As you get to a point like that, you have to realize, okay, how many risks should I be taking? When you first step into the games in these kinds of tournaments like this, a lot of times just you take the stride that you're ready to play in. You play as strong as you can and then see what happens. When you get behind, it's time to start going for first place. So you have to take these big 1st or 8th kind of risks and really get going from there. So we're jumping into game number 4. We're on Pokygom's spot as we start the game out here. And again, just a big smile on Pokygom. I feel like they've just had such a great attitude when it comes into TFT and specifically in this particular series for it. It just looks like they've had a great attitude.
Yeah. Pokygom does have a very good attitude and has been playing very, very well today. Back on the ranked ladder climb. Pocky kind of not playing that well, I would say, last week, but playing very well this week. Absolutely one of the 10 best players in North America, putting on a show today as to why, playing different compositions, playing them very flexibly, and it's been a lot of fun. I always love watching Pokygom play a game start to finish because he's always doing something creative and new.
Yeah. The first time I had ever played against Pokygom, they were very much playing the Yasuo composition all the time, and I straight up challenged it, and I got the absolute crap beaten out of me because Pokygom somehow was able to do just enough and hang on all this gold, and then as soon as I died, they picked up all the Yasuos and won, and I was like, oh my gosh, how can you be that good at it? I felt so ridiculous after the fact.
That is a player difference, my friend.
Yeah, that is a big player difference. Big difference. So we go here, the Knights and the... a couple of Hellions to start things out here. A tier and a cloak at the start of this one. Like, just as a perspective here, what's the item that's the best item you can find here? Without looking at that item that was just found, what's the best one you can have if you have tier and cloak?
I think that there are no amazing slams with tier and cloak. Hodge would probably be the best one. Runan's Hurricane certainly good if you have the right item holder for it early, right? If you have a Yasuo, if you have a Riven. Pocky there are a lot of people who are not willing to slam blue buff in this situation, by the way, now that we've been offered another tier. Pocky might be one of the people who is willing to offer slam blue buff. If he had a Ziggs too, I could see it because it would preserve a lot of HP. He talked about the fact that Ziggs is a little bit of a crank, particularly in the early game. So be interesting to see. We saw Soju in this exact situation earlier, slam a Chalice. He is not. He is going to slam the blue buff. There you go. So we talked earlier about who the holders are. I think the tough thing about blue buff is that because Karma is out of the meta right now, right? Very few people finding much success with Karma. It is a situation where that item doesn't naturally fit onto a carry. There's no 3-cost carry that you want to use it on. There's no 2-cost carry you want to use it on. There's no 4-cost carry that you want to use it on unless you're willing to play Karma. So then it's really just about the 5-cost carries, right? And I think that Gwyn is an outstanding holder of this item. It's just how do you get there in order to actually make it valuable? Only time will tell.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
the only
Setsuko,
thing...
Sorry, go for it.
The only thing I was worried about there is that Pokemon slammed it against Rue Loves You, who is a teammate. So it was the only thing that was weird to me about slamming the blue buff into that one. So, but go ahead and go forward with what you were going to say here.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I think the team play situation is very, very interesting. I think in the early game, you kind of just have to play your game. I don't think that you're at a stage on 2-1 where you can realistically do that. Right? Because who knows? Pocky could wind up giving up a fight there and then wind up winning 4 in a row, and will just be kicking himself for that decision. So if you're like in the middle of stage 2 and one person is clearly win streaking and one person is clearly lose streaking, obviously you want to play around that. But I think in general, incorrect to try to lose 2-1 just because you happen to be up against your teammate. One of you has to win, one of you has to lose. Meanwhile, we have Setsuko slamming an early Sunfire as well as an Archangels. This Ziggs is going to do a lot of work with this item because it has such a low mana cost that it's going to slowly ramp up its AP. Archangel is definitely one of the better AP items in the game, so a lot of value there. Meanwhile, Renzer is just stacking up that Ginzu's Rage Blade slowly but surely. The Kled, okay, the Ziggs Bomb does get off in time, and that is a win for the Ziggs and for Setsuko. For Hellions getting it done early. Definitely wind up going AP tree from this spot, and then it'll be interesting to see how he transitions, Hellion board's not naturally going towards AP tree very often, but Setsuko, one of the best, so it'll be fun to watch him do it.
Up to 9 here. And, kind of looking at this, if you decide to level, there's knights that are available, but is it more worth it to level here? Is it more worth it to pre-level? Or is it more worth it to have 10 gold here? It's very unusual that you see all 3 aspects of this, I think, being viable situations to go into.
Well, so I'm definitely not wanting to pre-level here, not wanting to level here because he's only on a 1 win streak. If you could go for 5 and it's going to swing something, I could see it. But under the circumstances, I probably wouldn't. I think making 10 here is more consistent, and I think he's still interested in getting some 1-cost units because of what is on his board. Right? He's got a Poppy 1, he's got a Kled 1. And so if I were in his shoes, I would make 10. Yeah, he chooses to make 10. It also depends on whether or not you streak. Sometimes if you win here, then you choose to level in order to try to keep momentum and put some 3-cost high roll into play. But under the circumstances, I definitely agree with Setsuko's choice to just make 10 gold. Very consistent. A lot of power in making 10 gold on 2-3 because you just really get your economy ramping early.
All right, so here we go. I feel like Belt is a pretty nice one to have here. I feel like Rod's a pretty nice one to have here. Given what we're seeing on that side of the board for Setsuko. The Belt seems like it makes most sense to me just because, when you have these kind of solid items, just take an item that's good at defense and something that could, really pretty much almost anything it finds, it feels like it's going to be powerful with a Belt. It's, I think, one of the rare situations, like Belt plus Bow. That's like the only thing I don't want to slam for the most part at the moment. So kind of seeing this, hit the place and then level up, get a Knight in play, feels like a great spot to be in.
Yeah, very, very natural cadence for him. As we go over to Jirachi's board. Jirachi has the early carry on the Aatrox. It's got a Sunfire to burn some people. It's got a Last Whisper to cut through some people. They also have a Riven and a Nidalee, so you can see their economy is in a really awkward position because they have like all of the units you want for this composition. Winds up selling an Aurelia pair. Not something you see every day. Aurelia pair so powerful early. I'm not sure about that one, actually. I kind of am down to sell this Aatrox. I don't think the Aatrox is significantly stronger than if he puts the Sunfire onto the Gragas, for example, with the 4 Dawnbringer buff, and then the Last Whisper can go onto Riven. They are able to win this fight as a result. I'm just not sure that it actually swung the fight, and I personally would be very interested in holding on to that Aurelia. I'm also willing to sell this Rakan if they have to. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, very interesting set of decisions. And there, oh god, instantly punished. There's the Aurelia too. Jirachi always in a good mood, laughing about it, no issues.
I don't mind hanging on to the Aatrox there. I feel like at this point when you have like the win streak going on, that just making the strongest board is a great way to do this. You don't have to be at 20 gold. You don't have to be at 10 gold. You're getting so much extra gold by the win streak that I want to keep that board going here. Now, it did feel kind of weird to sell the pair of Aurelias. I don't think I would have sold those, but I don't think I would have been too concerned about hitting 10 gold, honestly, at that point. I want this board to be as strong as possible to keep that going for a bit, because that feels like the strength of this Riven, Nidalee, and offensive items team is that you're just going to win a lot of rounds until everyone outscales your board at some point, which is just difficult to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I would rather hold the Aurelia pair than make 10 gold there. I just think making 10 gold there is so powerful. And the thing is, it's not, I mean, Rakan is going to be their next unit, but it's not like Rakan is such a powerful spike under the circumstances with the items that they have that you absolutely need to hold on to it. But Aurelia 2 is an insane spike. And again, I'm just not sure that Aatrox is like that much better. So I don't know. It's one of the first lines we've seen today that I've like really strongly disagreed with. But hey, Jirachi is an excellent player. I'm sure they have good justifications, and I'm sure that we could debate that one for hours. But unfortunately, we got to move on. Here we are on to Renzer's board, Team Goob. Renzer has been playing that, basically the composition Jirachi is looking at, right? Been playing the Riven or the Aurelia all day. Or sorry, Riven or Nidalee all day. Does have 2 early items slammed. Ginsu's Rageblade, not normally an item we see on Riven.
Not normally an item we see on Riven, but honestly, like I've played plenty of Rageblade on Riven as well, and it's just when you have 4 Dawnbringer in play, or you have like a bunch of ways to kind of defend this unit, a Rageblade on Riven can really change a lot of things. I think that it's smart for Renzer here to go to 40 gold and to try to have these big spikes that are taking place at a certain point.
Oh my God, Jirachi got...
Wow.
It just all came back.
Holy smokes.
And by the way, Renzer, but that's the exact composition that Renzer wants to play. So Renzer's looking at his board and looking at Jirachi's board and then looking at his board again and Jirachi's board and is like,
Yeah, it feels pretty tough. But from Renzer's point of view, it's like a lot of these units that get powerful, they're 2-cost units. The Riven, the Nidalee thing, that's the scary part if you're going to go that direction. But I feel like Renzer is not committed to one of those lines yet. And I think a lot of this is going to have to do with what kind of units really show up and what really balances out. It's, again, I don't really mind the Rageblade on the Riven. I think that's totally fine. It's the rest of this that's really going to make a difference. What other units are going to show up, and how are you going to make a difference with that? So I'm saying that this Tristana with, some pretty solid items here. From Sarah Lynn's perspective, Sarah Lynn's only at level 5 and is having a pretty strong fight here to try to wipe some of this stuff out. Is going to perhaps win. Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Stun. Oh, Tristana
Wow.
dodges the Pike stun. 5 head from the Rat.
That's a big difference. That is a
Yes.
5th loss for Renzer, though, so a lot of gold coming through, and especially for like a weak loss that took place as well. Seeing a Soraka show up, seeing a pair of Pike show up. I'm really curious to see how this roll down ends up working, because there's so many things that can happen that can change this direction here.
I mean, I don't think Renzer's really interested in changing his direction, right? I think Renzer basically only wants to play one composition. It's all that he has played on ladder. It's all that he has played today. And so I think he's just, I was talking about earlier, he's just a really, really narrow player, at least in terms of his approach to the current patch. It's unfortunate that he's getting contested by Jirachi. It's unfortunate that Jirachi's in such a better spot than he is for it. But hey, this rolldown could have gone a lot worse. He upgraded multiple units, including the most important unit on his board, that Riven. So Renzer very unlikely to be able to top 2 from this spot, but can definitely play for top 4 as a result of those hits in the 3-2 rolldown.
So that's what we're going to be looking at. Setsuko's hanging on to 40 gold, taking a big hit here. Or not a big hit here, just takes a hit here. 5 to plus the 2, was that was?
Yeah, just 3-unit loss. Not bad.
Yeah, not too bad. Rue Loves You sitting at 50 right now. Sterling sitting at 60. Buzzaboo 68. Setsuko at 74. And you look at the top 2, though. Jirachi and Pokygon both at 100. They have not faced each other yet. And they are on these big win streaks. They have not lost a round yet. So I am really curious to see who's going to end up winning out of those two and what really the big differences are. It feels like so many players are having like this conservative gold count here. Goobums, for instance, not the strongest board in the world, but Goobums is sitting at 90 health right now. Did they just face a bunch of weak units? And right now they're facing against a team that I feel like I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing that they defeat.
Yeah, I think very, very hard for Goobums to win this fight. That upgraded Riven is just too much power. This is a relatively weak Abomination. Just the Bramble Vest coming out and not a lot of value on it as a result. So that Riven is going to slowly ramp up. Renzer not worried about the fight at all, taking a look at other boards. It is all over but the AI at that point. Meanwhile, Jirachi and Pocky are finally going against each other. The Renewer spat early for Pocky. This Vladimir is just so difficult to kill, but eventually it is going to get overwhelmed as Jirachi ramps up and deals the killing blow. There can only be one, Nathan. Jirachi reigns supreme in this fight.
Yeah, Jirachi is just like a lot of strong stuff that's going on their side of the board. We're going over to Rue Loves You, who's just sitting at 50 right now. And was this, it felt like that wasn't like an immediate item thing that was taking place there. It's possible that you're just kind of, taking some time and looking at things and making sure, but we haven't seen the board here from Rue Loves You's perspective. So I'm kind of curious to see how much this Yasuo with the bow is influencing things.
Wow, Jirachi gets a 3-cost sword, taking it over the spat. The spat again is really, really powerful in that composition because it allows you to get to 4 Dawnbringer essentially for free. Meanwhile, Rue Loves You, playing the Yasuo composition, gets a Yasuo with a bow off of the carousel. That is always Breda Mortdog in that spot because boy does it feel good to get the exact unit you want with the exact item that you want. But Rue is in a awkward position to say the least. Level 6, still does not have 10 gold. We'll be able to make 10 gold this round, but a very, very torched economy. Not a lot of gold or HP to speak of under the circumstances.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that's a horrible thing, though. I feel like just something had to happen, or otherwise you were just going to find yourself, getting crippled by the amount of damage that you could have possibly taken this one. If they lose to Renzer here, though, I'm starting to have some real concern with what's happening here. It feels like this Rakan is doing a big difference in this, but this Yasuo not able to get the damage done here, and that didn't provide damage either. Holy smokes, that's not good. You're supposed to be winning those spots when that happens.
You know what? It's fine. Rue was just trying to farm the Radiant Blessing. 2 components.
Ooh.
Gets a bow, which is huge. And then has to decide which item to go for here. A couple different options. Radiant Redemption is my favorite because it's a kind of generic defensive item that I think can add a lot of value. You could theoretically Shojin your Aphelios if you wanted to go that direction. There are 2 Aphelios 2s. Demon Slayer is not bad as a 3rd item on Yasuo, but under the circumstances, considering that so many of the items are spoken for, I would really like to see the Redemption. Yeah, you just need some kind of defensive power. It's always fun to go for offensive items, do not get me wrong, but eventually you have got to be willing to have some defense on your board, and that redemption can pay a lot of dividends as these fights go on.
Yeah, and Goobums here you can see is very clearly looking for a Vel'Koz kind of interaction with the way those items are set up. I would call that the best in slot. Vel'Koz personally, I think that the Radiant Hex tech is a drastically strong difference compared to the regular Hex tech. However, I do feel like with that redemption being thrown in place here and that Yasuo getting the RFC, this is a major difference that is taking place. So for Rue, it's going to be really tough, I think, to collect enough gold to have to hit the level 7 and make that impact. But perhaps, that little tiny difference was enough to get things going. And again, looking at Goobum's side of things, at level 7 coming into this, so you're going to get a free roll next turn that's already on level 7. And just looking for Vel'Koz at this point, and it doesn't look like anybody is going in that direction at the moment, aside from Setsuko, apparently.
Yeah. There are rarely going to be a lot of Vel'Kozes out of the pool as we finish stage 3, right? Gumas really just needs to hit 1 Vel'Koz in order to be able to stabilize. If he can upgrade some parts of his board, by all means. If he can find a Lux so that he can play the redeemed trait along with that Vel'Koz, that'd be big. But Vel'Koz is one of the 4-cost carries that's capable of stabilizing on 1 star. So there's the Lux. Gonna keep dipping. Oh my god, now that he finds 2 of them, I think it's correct to keep rolling, right? Because that 2 Vel'Koz spike can maintain all of stage 4. Puts the Lux in. He does not need really... Wow, 2 Fiddlesticks as well? This is just a player diff, Nathan. This guy is too good.
You're absolutely right. Goobums is too good. Someone's got to get something done. That's not quite the unit you were looking for in order to have this happen, but I agree with you. I think that like hanging out at 30 gold, I think is a reasonable spot for Goobums to be in as well. Like at 59, if you end up having your gold stabilized and you're not really finding the perfect unit, at some point you're going to get a help from the Radiant pickup. But if you roll all of your gold and you miss, you've kind of given up a lot at that point. So I think that trying to balance out your health and your gold is a pretty reasonable decision to be making here. Is going to be taking a pretty soft loss difference in this spot. Not unhappy with that whatsoever. 4th loss in a row, but a very small hit to be taking there, and you have lots of pairs of very strong units.
Yeah, lots of pairs of very strong units. Has the opportunity to make a redemption here for the A-bomb if he decides to do that. He could even put it onto Brand, for example, and backline it to get more survivability on the Vel'Koz, although with the Life Blade, certainly a lot of survivability there. I'm scouting around trying to decide how valuable the redemption would be. The thing about redemption is it's really good into AoE-based team comps. I'm putting this in over Callista already. I think it's better. Yeah. 4 Abomination right now feels like a bait to me. I don't know about you, Nathan.
I mean, I just like Abomination units. I never feel like it's a bait. However, I do like Ivern a lot. I mean, Ivern's that's my choice. If I had to just pick a unit I'm going with all the time, Ivern's pretty much it. And so I think that you're pretty spot on with pretty much everything you just said there. I do like the Hand of Justice onto the A-bomb just to give you a little bit more of a tank that's taking place there. And you're having a lot of healing that's going on, plus it's your Fiddle. that has the Hand of Justice right now. So that extra damage that's coming in. And you look at this Vel'Koz and how much damage it's dealing right now. We still have not had the A-bomb take place just yet. Look at how long it took for this A-bomb to come out of place. Like, Goobam's board is looking very strong at the moment.
Yeah, very strong. A single Vel'Koz absolutely stabilizes. Meanwhile, Jirachi doing their best Pokygom cosplay, going for that Last Whisper, Bloodthirster, Radiant, QSS, Jax. Not quite the same situation Pocky was in because Pocky high rolled so many other units around it, but hey, you know, Jirachi still at 81 HP with that very, very high roll opening and in a great position to be able to transition. Meanwhile, we're over on Sarah Lynn, who is playing the Rats. Finds a couple more Threshes, which is definitely nice. Already done with Tristana items, so would be looking for Kin items. A little bit behind the curve, though. Sarah only has 37 HP left, 40 gold, and needs to find 4 more Kinins and 5 more Tristanas to really be able to spike. I agree with Slimming that Ginsu's needs to make an item, and that is definitely a solid item on the Lulu. Actually, it's 5 Lulus, by the way, so a lot of potential power here for Sarah. Not necessarily a strong board yet, but if she's able to 3-star some of these units, she will be the scary Rats player that everyone in the lobby will be afraid of and, you know, curse under their breath while they're at it.
Yeah, kind of tough, I think, with the items. You have, like, nothing defensive that's taken place here, so I think that working towards the Lulu and getting that big, as well as, you know, going towards, like, a 3-star Thresh, very important things here. Setsuko taking another hit from this. And for Sarah Lynn, I feel like if you're able to get just a couple more of the strong units here, or able to find, like, a reason to make, you know, certain items a certain way, this could be a tremendous difference. And it looks like Sarah Lynn's going to be getting this belt, which is exactly what you're looking for. That means your Kennen now has a viable item to equip. And a very strong one as well. You know, it's something that when my experience of playing this Tristana comp is that if you don't have a way to burn stuff, it's much harder for the Tristana to actually finish out the board at that point.
Yeah, what is happening, by the way? Goobams gets a 3rd pick. Heimerdinger with a tier? Are you kidding me?
No, it's set up.
Goobams can, like, instantly pivot into Heimerdinger instead of Vel'Koz. He can go to level 8 for sure now. Very, very, very strong unit to wind up going that far. Shocking, honestly, that no one wanted it, but I guess just no one needed the tier, and no one felt like they were in a position to grief. It's one of the interesting things where oftentimes you'll see a player grief in that spot if there's no great item for them, but if there is something they really want, better to kind of help your own board versus griefing the rest of the lobby.
So here we go. Is this going to be strong enough to fight through this? I'm looking at that Riven, who's got some pretty strong items, as well as this this slight Revenant that's in the front line here for Renzer's side. The Tristana jumps out, is able to start putting pressure onto this back corner here, and it looks like that the Tristana is going to be pretty protected throughout this, and that the rest of the board for Renzer is not getting the job done. So taking a look at this one, that Tristana is, again, fairly safe. However, it does jump right in front of the Riven, but is able to get it done. That's a win there. Renzer taking a slight hit on that one, but clearly looking to get to level 8 or just to keep rolling for 3-star units. One of those two from Renzer. But Sarah Lynn looks like they're just having a pretty solid spot to go into there. A little bit far away, but could definitely get something done. Buzzyboo finding the Radiant, getting what the heck? This is so many swords.
Yeah, too bad you can't play 2 Nocturne 3s, because definitely has the items to be able to support it. Assassins are a really interesting spot because there's really only one attack damage based assassin right now, and it's the one that we're looking at, right? Diana's utility, Pyke's utility, Kha'Zix certainly isn't going to do any work with these items, at least nothing that we can really speak about. Viego doesn't want the AD, so it's a very interesting take on assassins this set. I like it a lot. I think it's super fun. It's just, you know, Buzzyboo very unlucky with those items. There's just not a lot of value they can get there, but hey, able to roll over their partner Jirachi's board. Good for Buzzy. Buzzy needs to preserve the HP. Bad for Jirachi, but Jirachi's already trading HP to go to 8, so I think under the circumstances, this team is going to be happy with the situation. Buzzy's an interesting spot if he is able to get the 3-star Nocturne power spike after this next neutral round. Definitely capable of finishing top 4. Setsuko is dead. Second time today we've seen someone not get to see all of their items. That is a feels bad man situation.
That's crazy. I mean, how often do you see someone eliminated before the final creep round takes place? It's pretty rare. But today we've seen 2 of them. It's nuts.
Yeah, definitely rare at this level because players have such a good understanding of their relative power levels of their boards, right? So they really understand that. You know, hey, if I'm weaker at this stage, I can roll down earlier and stabilize and try to avoid 8th if at all costs. Obviously, someone has to take an 8th, but didn't get to see Setsuko's line very much. It's tough to kind of armchair quarterback something we don't even get to see it in action, but definitely a tough spot. Okay, that's a big hit.
Yeah.
Now has the Revenant buff online. Desperately needs to find one more Nocturne. Find one more Nocturne, potentially stable. Don't find one more Nocturne. We are in a bad position.
No Nocturne.
Uh-oh. Can roll one more time, I guess. Yeah, it just makes the Giant Slayer. Kind of is what it is. Very, very unfortunate situation. Nocturne 2, even with 2 of them not very strong in the situation, does have the Radiant Frozen Heart on Diana, which is really, really good, and well-positioned to kind of clean up a lot of this. The Kha'Zix is kind of solo going to kill this Heimerdinger. Meanwhile, the 2 Nocturnes are going to roll through. Pocky, meanwhile, is on his way to level 9, has that blue buff and Radiant Gunblade on this Gwyn. This Gwyn is terrifying, Nathan.
Well, it's also got the Cavalier spot on it, too. Like, Pocky, I'm finally taking a hit in this spot, but it looks like Pocky's on their way to 9 in that situation. But honestly, like, with that particular Gwen, I am very worried for the rest of the lobby. If that hits 2-star, holy smokes, that Gwen's going to be, like, so difficult to kill at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I said it early, right? The problem with slamming blue buff early is that where does it go, right? Who are the good holders of it? Obviously, Teemo and Gwen, but you got to get there. Pocky is a master of getting there. Pocky has more than twice as much HP as the rest of the lobby. Says, hey, all you people that are afraid of slamming blue buff, all you got to do is just win rounds. And if you do that, you'll get to level 8, level 9. You'll be able to find the legendaries you need to really make full use of this item. This is why I love watching Pokkygum play. I mean, look at this man's items. He's got a Chalice and a Renewer Spat and a blue buff and a light. Like, what is this board? It's so beautiful from Pocky.
It's so interesting to me, too, kind of looking at the Goobum side of things, where they found that Heimerdinger, but they chose to hang on to the Vel'Koz at that point, too, just saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to equip this Heimerdinger with items, and I feel like for Goobums here, this is the Vel'Koz is the strongest thing that you're going to have right now, because, again, you kind of have, like, the best-in-slot Vel'Koz items with the Radiant Hextech that's taking place here. So where is Goobum's next line of play go? It looks to me like it's very difficult to improve this board that much outside of rolling and hitting a lot of these 4-star units. So from Goobum's side of things right now, it looks like continue to let your gold increase and level 9 perhaps one of your targets from here.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. Goobums is looking to go to level 9. He's thinking about how do you win the lobby. That's a good shout, by the way. The items are good. Wow, Renzer does hit the Riven 3. Wow. Such a big deal. The items for a Heimerdinger here would be good, but the items for a Vel'Koz are amazing. Vel'Koz does so much work with his Lifeblade because he gets so much consistent AoE damage. He's healing himself up to full the whole time and just absolutely shredding. These 2 Nocturne 2s are just not going to cut it. Buzzy Boo's Ghost is getting destroyed. Buzzy Boo's actual board, time will tell. Meanwhile, his partner Renzer is taking out Rue Loves You, goes down, Sarah down to 1 life as well. So Team Goob, by the way, the least creatively named team in the field, the worst performing team in Week 1 is having a massive bounce back in Week 2. Goobums and Renz are putting on a little bit of a clinic here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic looking spot for them at the moment. Some good things can happen here. I'm not really seeing anything from the Goobum's perspective that's making too much sense to grab other than the Teemo with the Invoker. But is no one taking that? Holy smokes!
Oh my god. Well, I would say that is the exact unit item combination he is looking for. That's going to give him the 2 Invoker trait. He can go to level 9. The only problem is, okay, so yeah, he has to sell the Heimerdinger, right? Because he needs to get this online already. It's hard to not play Teemo in that situation because the utility is so much more valuable, right? He has plenty of damage in this Vel'Koz. He doesn't need more damage. He needs more utility, and that's exactly what he's getting. Meanwhile, we get to see Pocky doing his transition on level 9, taking his time. He's not afraid. He's lost a few rounds, but he has tons of HP to go. He's got a Stimmy still to go, and he's got this extra component as well. Meanwhile, going up against Buzzy Boo, who did finally hit the Nocturne 3, this is a very scary assassin board.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in Pokkygum's situation, you're taking your time to level here. This is the Nocturne punishes you. Like, that's what's happening in a spot like this. I will say that this Gwen is still looking pretty scary. Like, the fact that it has not been killed right away from, like, that was like 4 attacks it took for that Nocturne to kill it. I feel like Pokkygum's in a spot where, if this Gwen gets 2-starred, and a couple of other important units get 2-starred, everyone else is in a lot of trouble from this. Buzzy Boo on the win streak at the moment. Goobums took a loss in that previous round. Sarahlin's still alive on this one. And again, Pokemon kind of in the situation where it looks like they're thinking, you know what, I just don't need to roll that much right now. As soon as this creep round is over and I see another item, that's the spot where you kind of go in.
Yeah, Pocky's trying to decide how many lives he's prepared to lose here, right? Building up his economy at level 9. He's playing a lot of weak units, right? Like, he's playing a board that was capable of preserving a ton of HP early, but is not really well suited to deal with anyone's late game board. I don't know who he beats at this point with this current board, right? When he gets a Gwyn 2, absolutely, but right now it's going to be very, very tough. He is going up against Renzer, who has that 3-star Riven, and that Riven is going to it's on the correct side. It's going to slowly but surely chew away at this board. The Gwyn is doing a ton of work, dancing around the backline, staying completely healthy with the Gunblade. The newer units are also staying healthy. This Riven does have anti-heal on it, so it's not making full use of the Radiant BT, and it's also getting its attack speed constantly slowed by the Teemo. The Gwyn is dancing around and trying to make things hard for the Riven. The Riven is just too strong, though, slowly but surely cutting down the board. You know what? That is not a bad situation for Pokygum. A 1-unit loss at this point allows him, after buying that Teemo, to get below the Radiant threshold. He has a blue buff, a Shojin. Wow. He has another blue buff, and he has another Cavalier Spat. Okay, Pocky's board is about to get terrifying. He can blue buff this Teemo. He's going to put in the Revenant units. Pocky had a bunch of potential power that's about to turn into actual power, Nathan. This is a board capable of winning lobbies.
This is scary as heck. Like, what? Look at how much stuff they're getting to support their board and the direction this is gone. Like, how on earth are you supposed to defeat Pokygum's position at this point? There were so many improvements just happened.
Yeah, this is the power of the way in which Pocky played the game. He built up a ton of HP early that allowed him to get to level 9 and trade a bunch of that AP that he preserved early for an economic advantage, and now he's turned his economic advantage into a board advantage. And that is the beauty of TFT, is there's a bunch of different ways you can go. You can trade life early in order to be able to, in order to build up the economy, in order to get a board strong in the mid game. You can build a strong board early and then transition late. There's so many different paths you can take in a game of TFT, and Pocky is a master of that. He has such a strong understanding. And by the way, Cavalier Volibear is so scary. This unit with damage reduction can cast multiple times in a fight, and multiple Volibear casts in a fight are so tough to deal with. Meanwhile, going up against Jirachi, the other really early win streak player, does have that very, very scary Viego, but you know what? A scary Viego and a scary Jax is just not enough. So much power on Pocky's board. It's just, I don't know, Nathan, I don't know how you deal with it. The threats are everywhere. The Teemo, the Heimerdinger, the Gwyn, tons of frontline. Just who stands in his way?
That is disgusting. That's it. That's all I have to say. This is disgusting. Like, this is so powerful. I don't know. I don't know who stands in the way, or if anyone is even considered to be standing in the way at this point. Like, my gosh, when you create the Cavalier buff onto a bunch of different units, it's a lot different than when you have a lot of Cavaliers in play. It's not quite the same. These are units that were not intended to have the Cavalier difference in terms of damage prevention, but now suddenly they exist. I am very worried for the rest of this. Jirachi and Sarah Lynn get knocked out in 6th and 5th place. It's Goobums, Renzer, Pokygum, and Buzzyboo that are fighting for a position right now. But look at this Teemo start to crank in that back line. I am really curious to see how this Vel'Koz can shred through this. It does get some good damage going here, but that Gwen looks like it's going to survive the entire time. The Teemo didn't die, and that Heimerdinger too didn't die. Goobums is the one who did.
Yeah, Goobums on the wrong side, and that fight was basically doomed from the very beginning, but Goobums and Renzer both able to get top 2. Renzer actually able to defeat Buzzyboo, which is really interesting. I love Pocky's adaptation in terms of his positioning. He's basically looking at his board and he's saying, my board is preposterously strong. The only thing I need to worry about is this Nocturne 3 getting onto my carry, so I will make it impossible. I will full clump, and with the changes to the way the assassin positioning, assassins work, they jump first, so Pocky will not de-corner. So basically, Buzzy has to jump away from the clump and see if his Nocturne can, like, slowly but surely work his way onto the carries as opposed to jumping straight into the clump. Okay, so here we go. He's going to jump into the clump and he's going to eat a ton of Volibear CC. We'll get to see if Buzzyboo can theoretically challenge this board, because I don't think if he can do it, then anyone's going to be able to do it.
Well, the Nocturne is in a pretty good spot for this. Going to chew through this back line pretty well.
Oh, the Dynacast again.
Yeah. The Gwen is still just completely unchecked. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this Gwen would deal this much damage if it goes unchecked for a bit. The Nocturne pretty close to getting there, but that's another cast from the Volibear, and the Volibear still hasn't been shredded away. in that spot because of that Renewer spatula. It's there, plus the Cavalier spatula. Renzer gets knocked out in third place. Pokygom versus Buzzyboo. And I always have a problem finding these items and looking at them and determining which one is which. Pokygom very quickly grabbed that Teemo, though, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, Teemo 2 is going to make a big difference. It's worth noting that while I was talking about the D corner, I missed that that it's a Radiant Frozen Heart for Buzzyboo. And because Radiant Frozen Heart starts with so much additional mana, look at Diana's mana bar. It's literally going to cast after one auto attack. He's going to have another Diana 2, and this is what he has to do to deal with Pokygom's boards. He needs to get disruption. He needs to get these units out of the corner, and it'll be interesting to see if Pokygom chooses to adjust and maybe splits his units up as a result. By the way, despite the fact that he was able to get great access onto the Teemo and the Heimerdinger, it didn't matter because there's another carry here in the Gwen. There's just so many threats on Pokygom's board. Can Buzzyboo do it?
Well, we're going to find out that Teemo getting a nice shot here on this Nocturne that's right in its face at the moment, and that Gwen is just absolutely smashing the board as well. Buzzyboo gets dominated in this final spot. Pokygom with another first-place finish here today. A first, and a third are what Pokygom ended up finishing with here. And when your average finish is second place throughout the day, you are crushing the rest of the players.
That man is good at TFT. He played different stuff. He played different styles. He played a path in this last game that I think most people do not play, right? When we talked about it at the very beginning of the game and he got those item coins, it was so fun to start and end on his board, right? And I was like, I don't think very many players build blue buff in this situation, but I think Pocky might because it can give him enough board strength that he was able to snowball that advantage into a terrifying Legendaries board that honestly is like among the most capped boards you will ever see in TFT. How you deal with a triple carry Gwen, Teemo, Heimerdinger, plus the fully upgraded Revenant frontline, I have no idea. That is a terrifying board, and it's just a very well played, another clean win from Pokygom today.
And at every stage, it was managed properly. The gold was always checked. He was always never impatient about anything. Because he was able to pick up these wins early, too, it just wasn't really that he was feeling this massive threat at any point in the game. And when you have that, how do you balance out your gold and how do you balance out your units? Well, that was Pokygom kind of demonstrating exactly what happened. I don't know how you beat that. You had the full Revenant composition. You have the 5 stars all upgraded. What do you do to defeat that? On top of the fact that you're taking percentage less damage because of all these Cavalier spatulas. Just what an incredibly powerful board spot.
Yeah, that is the power fantasy of TFT of like, what if I had everything upgraded and all the good items on all the different units that I wanted, right? That is what we just witnessed. It was a clinic from Pokygom, beautiful from start to finish, great understanding of when and how he needed to spike, not panicking when he started losing a bunch of fights at level 9 and saying, you know what, I have so much HP preserved, I can go all the way through the next neutral round, and then I can roll it all down. And you know what, he did hit, right? He paid his alms to the Mort Dog, blessing situation, and he winds up just getting all the legendaries he was looking for. So it was a little bit of luck and a lot of bit of skill winds up with the first place from Pokygom.
Yeah, I don't even know if like a little bit of luck is where my head is at. I mean, Pokygom was at level 9 for a very long time and had like 40 gold at level 9 and wasn't rolling it away, was hanging on to it at a certain point too. It's just great understanding of the context that you're in. It's hard to have that understanding too, because how often do you really find yourself in that spot? You were 1 out of 8 times technically. Like if you just put it strictly from a math perspective, 1 out of 8 times you are supposed to be the most powerful person in the lobby. How on earth can you have enough experience to understand that that's what you're supposed to be doing in order to scale that out properly and become the most powerful person consistently throughout? Let's take a look at the winner for Lobby B at the moment. Pokygom and Rue Loves You. This is their second lobby win they have, so now $100 in their pocket. And some pretty good points that are tacking up here as well. Still going to have a strong performance in week number 3 in order to find themselves in that top 4 spot. But this was the kind of week you needed in order to even get in that position to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. The Neanderthals coming in today only ahead of Team Goob in points. Both of those teams actually had very, very good days, so you love to see it. The field is narrowing. We should be in for an exciting week 3.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the lobby scoreboards and where all the players are at the moment, because we are getting done for today. Taking a look at Lobby A, which we did not see. Prest Event with another win taking place in there. You love to see that. Prest Event had some pretty strong some weeks here as well. Today they had a first, a second, a third, and an 8th. But a first and a second and a third is a really tough thing to be having when you take a look at the players that are in these lobbies. There's no point here where it looks like, oh well, yeah, that's an easy one to win in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we came into this tournament with a lot of people talking about how it was Soju and his friend Prestivan. I think at this point it's Prestivan and his friend Soju. Prestivan continuing to score the most points for Team 8875. Soju with a solid day as well. So they are very well positioned as we head into week 3.
Yeah, they pick up quite a bit of points between the two of them. 48 more points picked up for Team 8875. And here, we're going to be taking a look at that. That's their second lobby win that they have had here as well. 8875, 2 wins today with $100 into their pockets as well. And you're noticing second place is their current placement. And when you have 2 strong weeks like they have had, honestly, not too much of a surprise to be seeing it in that kind of spot.
Yeah, it's absolutely not surprised. They are 1 point out of first place, 96 for Wide People Happy. Ramblin' Robin climbs into third place. So we have a really nice balance, right? You had a couple of the teams, a few of the teams from today. Mega Furret's able to score enough points today to be just on the outside looking in. Everybody looking to get into that 4th place. And we're starting to see a little bit of a gap emerge between the top 8 and the bottom 8 here. But again, so many points on the line in every lobby. There's absolutely enough games left for all of these teams to be able to come back. Even Brontosaurus not mathematically eliminated. Tough day for the Cuties as well, by the way. We talked a lot going into today about the rivalry between the Cuties and 8875. 8875 definitely have the bragging rights for the time being.
Yeah, they certainly do. And again, 1 week left in order to find out who's going to be the top 4 teams in this one. That is their goal for what they're headed for right now. Wide People Happy, 8875, Ramblin' Robin, and Pogo, or as I had first called it, Pogo.
Pogo. Pogo for life, baby.
I'm going to continue to emphasize it that way. Just that's the way I'm going to do it. That's the way it's going to be. For that concludes our day number 2. However, we're not done with today's show. We're going to be taking a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be having an interview with the team that performed the strongest today, so get ready for that. We're going to try to have that online and then have some questions for them, so that way we can get some cool answers and some interesting answers and see if we can get them to talk some more fun trash about this sort of stuff, so that way Bryce can stop talking trash about me when the opportunity arrives. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, interview is coming up, so stay tuned. We are back from week number 2 and day number 2. We have an interview with Ramblin' and Robin that's going to be taking place here today. First of all, congratulations on a very strong performance that y'all have had this week. Robin, I'm going to start with this question directed at you, and then Ramblin', I would like if you answered afterwards. Kind of curious, how similar or different do you all feel that your play styles are coming into an event like this, and how do you feel that influences you when it comes to a team event?
Honestly, the playstyle isn't too much different, but it's like Ramlin said, it's just you have someone else to bounce ideas off, which is really good. You're like, someone can not backseat you, but like you can get tips from other people or your partner that you probably wouldn't have done yourself. Besides that, help another eye to like scout, helping you scout for Vel'Koz's, Diana's, stuff like that, and then who's playing what, griefing what units. But besides that, like you shouldn't change your playstyle too much from like solo queue, or else you're just gonna like not be like efficient. Yeah.
And Ramblin', what about you? What do you think?
I mean, he's pretty much what he said in terms of the duo aspect. I think it's still mostly individual player performance, player skill expression, but just having somebody to bounce ideas off and like kind of keep an eye on the lobby together to get that full overview of what's going on really helps out. And I mean, if you're talking just about like our play styles compared to one another, I think we have a really similar play style, but we kind of lean in different directions when it comes to end game comps. So that helps us kind of branch out as the game goes on, so we don't contest each other too much.
Yeah, just to build on that, because I agree. I think that one of the interesting parts of TFT is that it is still, at its core an individual game, but the duos format is introducing, new opportunities for skill expression between the two of you. And I can't help but notice that it feels like every time there's a duos tournament, Ramble and Robin are competing together and either winning the thing or doing very well. How do you feel like your team synergy has evolved as you've gotten more reps playing in duos tourneys together? And Robin, we'll start with you, and then Ramblin', you can go.
I think it definitely helps if you guys are like friends or like actually like know each other, so then you guys won't be like, I don't know, like uncomfortable or like too shy to say something. But yeah, me and Ramblin' have been playing dual games with like viewers like a lot, just to kind of build the synergy and team synergy and stuff. I think it definitely helps if you have like good chemistry, I guess. I think there's definitely certain situations in a dual tourney where it only comes up in the dual tourney, and you can't really practice it, outside of the tourney. But like as like the more you play in a dual tourney, like the more you can like be like, if a situation comes to you, you know what to do with a partner. Yeah.
Can either of you give an example of that? Like, is there anything, for example, that you did today that you think, if when you first started doing duos together, you might not have done the same way or done it at all?
Not today, but like I don't know if you guys saw the clip where like last week, Ramblin', like I told Ramblin' to take out his carry for one turn, and then because he was in my pool to fight him, and then he has like a lot of lives where I only have one life, and then I fought him and he took out his Riven, and then I ended up beating him, giving me an extra point because the other person died. And we are always looking out for like that type of like scenario, but it didn't come up today. But like in the future, like if we're ever gonna play each other and the other person is probably guaranteed top 2 already and can sack a life for the other player, then we'll do that. But as far as like this week, I don't think I mean I can't remember, I can't think of like anything we did like that was like crazy dual synergy. Can you think of something, Ramblin'? Or
no? I mean, this week we're always considering it. We're like weighing how risky is it, and I think this week there was too many times where one of us was 1 life and one of us was 2 lives, and it's just not quite worth the gain when you could potentially both lose a placement for it. So the only real benefits we were getting in terms of actually being a duo this week, I think, were more about like not contesting each other, of course, but also sometimes if we're at the carousel at the same time, we can kind of decide like, okay, I need this item more, so you can take the other one, or when you see units in your shop that the other guy's trying to look for, then it can be good to sell them and throw them back in the pool. So not a lot of active play this time, but just having somebody to talk to helps a ton.
We definitely could have done better though. Like we had one mistake where Ramblin' was in my board was super strong, and I think I only lose to Ramblin' if I miss position. And then Ramblin', like I think we both forgot, or I forgot that Ramblin' was in my pool, and then I ended up fighting his ghost. I fought his ghost into his Diana with Shojin, and then I ended up losing to Ramblin's ghost, giving me a 4th, I think.
Yeah, you got fourth, and I think you were strongest in the lobby. So
Yeah, I was strongest in the lobby, but I lost to Ramblin's Ghost when it could have been easily prevented if we had better communication. And I just didn't. If his Diana didn't hit me, then I would have beat his Ghost, which doesn't cost him anything else, and I probably would have won the lobby. So that was like a mistake that we made. We could have definitely like communicated better, but like that was like during like 6-1 where we were both rolling and scouting, and we didn't really have time. So probably could do that better next time.
Wow, that's a really tough and close spot to hear about that. I wanted to ask you something that's more about just the event so far in general as well. Kind of looking at the team scores, is there anybody that you're surprised at the score that they have, whether it's higher up or lower down? I'm kind of curious, like if you had expectations of certain players, and if you did not, again, just any of the situations in terms of team scores that are surprising to you 2 weeks in now.
Yes. So surprising to me is A875. Precedent carrying Soju, or I mean Precedent carrying as an in real life friend, doing way better both weeks. Also, I'm pretty sure Precedent was like the worst player in this tourney, like debatable, but he's actually popping off, so that's definitely a surprise.
P-God!
Yeah, P-God. And then also a surprise is the Nubao and DQA being so low when they were probably like the second or strongest team. Yeah. What about you, Ramla?
Yeah, I mean, from what I watched, the DQA had a rough day, and I mean that happens. Just sometimes you low roll, but they still got another week left, so I wouldn't be surprised if they managed to maybe not make it all the way into the finals, but at least make it close. And I'd say somebody I've been impressed by, maybe not a team in general, but Becca's played really well. She's been climbing recently on ladder, and she's been able to convey that into tournament results as well. So that's, I mean, even playing against her last week, she definitely made her mark on the tourney.
So taking a step back, this tournament's kind of filling a path to regionals, right? I mean, it was all kind of around that where all the qualifiers got to invite someone. I'm curious, as you're kind of getting closer and closer to the time when we're deciding who goes from NA, do you guys have any sense of the relative strength of the different players in the field? And do you have any predictions about, based on how things have gone so far, who you think wind up being the 3 players who make it from North America? Robin, we can start with you.
Oh, hold on. Let me look at the... Wait, I need to look at the player list. Hold on.
Yeah, for sure.
So your question is, looking at the player list, who I think is going to make it to represent NA at Worlds?
Yeah, because... yeah, essentially, yes.
Okay. Okay, I think Milk is really, really good. He was really good set 5. This set, he didn't really play that much, but watching him play, I still think he's really good. So I definitely think he's one of the 3 that will make it. The other 2... Wait, who's even playing in this? Oh, the other 2... Oh, I think I'm gonna make it for the other spot. And then the 3rd person is... GVA or Kurum, probably. Because, yeah, I gotta shout out my, my teammates, you know?
I love it, I love it.
I forgot who else is in the... Wait... There's some people missing, right, in the snapshots that not playing the duel.
Only Socks, I think he's the only player.
Oh yeah, I think Socks would definitely have a good chance because he made it first year and second year, so he's a veteran, and
yes,
he will not get nervous. He has been in the situation multiple times, so nerves will not be a thing. He won't get like tournament anxiety or whatever. So I think he's in a really good spot to make it. So I'm gonna say me, Socks, and Milk.
Okay. Ramblin', how about you?
I mean, I've definitely been impressed by Milk. I'm somebody that's still kind of newer to the TFT scene relative compared to how long TFT's been out. But every time I've seen him play, for how little he seems like he plays, he's always performing well, especially in these tourneys. So, I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to make it for sure, but if I had to pick somebody, I'd throw him on there. And then, of course, Robin gets the 2nd spot. No questions there. If I had to pick a 3rd one...
The pity pick.
I'm going to pick... I'd say Ramkev. He's another person that doesn't really put a lot of weight into ladder, but every time you see him in tourney, he's popping off. So when it really matters, I mean, he got 3rd in Worlds, right? So he's got the experience to back it up. I'm going to be rooting for him for sure.
All right. Good. And then we have last question and final thoughts for y'all after this one follows up. For the patch that we have coming very soon after this, what do you think the strongest initial team is going to be on this one? Ramblin', I want to start with you. That question, and then any final thoughts, shout-outs that you have afterwards.
Talking about teams in this tourney?
What compositions you think will be strongest after the patch that's coming up?
I got you. Well, seems like we're gonna have some Hellion nerfs. I don't know if it's gonna be a bad comp per se, but I'm hoping it's still not at the top. It'd be good to not have to deal with that for a little while at least. Depends on what else they end up nerfing down the line, but I think Riven is right there. I mean, she can beat Hellions, but if Hellions are out of the way, then I think you're going to see a lot more Rivens winning lobbies.
Any final thoughts or shoutouts for you, Ramblin'?
No, go ahead.
All right. And then Robin, what about you?
Oh, I think Riven reroll is definitely really, really strong. I think Riven kind of needs like a little nerf. I think Aphelios is like getting more and more popular. Everyone pooped on Aphelios in the beginning of the set, but I think Aphelios is probably one of the strongest AD comps now, versus like Lucian and Draven. I feel like the set's kind of balanced, like pretty balanced. Like you can, obviously there's some comps better than other comps, but you can top 4 with like a lot of comps. Like people hate on Draven, but like Draven, I actually think Draven's pretty good. A lot of EUS in the EUS qualifiers, a lot of people play Draven, so I think Draven's good. I think Aphelios is good. I think Lucian is a little bit too weak, not too weak, but a little bit weaker. Maybe he needs a little bit buff. Fortnite Jax is super good. Vel'Koz is good. I think everything is good actually. So I think it's a great set, great balance right now.
All right.
Yeah,
Any
fun
any
time
final
to play
shoutouts?
TFT for sure.
Oh yeah, no. I think it's fantastic right now. And then Robin, do you have any final shoutouts before we let you go?
Oh yeah. Okay, I got a shout out to my my coach BK Sarg. I don't know if you guys know BK Sarg, but he's always in my chat telling me to concentrate, like stop betting blackjack, concentrate on your board, like swap my positioning and stuff like that. So yeah, BK Sarg, shout out to you. Oh yeah, telling me to focus. Yeah, he says like, can you focus? Why AFK? Look at own board, scout and position your army, please. Game time, use your head. Yeah. So he puts me in game time. So shout out to BK Sarg. And shout out to Ramblin' for like low key like carrying me through the tournament. So yeah, shout out to Ramblin'.
All right. Well, congratulations, you guys, on two strong weeks performances now. Hopefully, you can continue it in week number 3. I'm really looking forward to it. Congratulations on today's performance, and I'm looking forward to seeing y'all play next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Congrats, guys.
And so that's kind of going to wrap things up for us as well. This was like quite a week of stuff that was going on here. We're going to be taking a look at the Team 3 weeks, the team schedule for week number 3 that we have coming up here. But Bryce, wow, today was quite a day of some TFT games that we had.
Yeah, super fun. A lot of meta diversity. I love watching TFT when it feels like a lot of different things can win. And as much as I'm excited for the Hellion B patch to come, because I really hate that composition, I just think it's too strong for what it does and too brain dead as well. There's a lot of different things that are really, really strong. So it's going to be fun as we look at the pairings for next week. Day 1, while we're going to have 8875 and Cuties both going. It'll be interesting to see if they're in the same lobby. Meanwhile, you have a bunch of the top teams actually going on the final day on the 24th, so it should be a fun ride.
That's right. August 23rd and 24th, the next Monday and next Tuesday, is when we're going to be having the final days for the get to the finals portion of this one. The team's cumulative scores in terms of getting to the finals, the top 4 teams. We'll be finding out after next Tuesday. So make sure you tune into this channel right here. You can throw a follow here in order to keep up to date with that one. And that pretty much is wrapping things up here. You have any final thoughts or shout outs for yourself, Bryce, as we close out today?
I'm down to shout out Riot. I mean, the game is in an incredible state. Set 5.5, I think, was extremely underhyped going in. A lot of people were really down on it, and I am having so much fun playing. I know a ton of people who are feeling the same way about the game, and as we're heading into kind of the most important tournaments, right, the finals of this and then in regionals and worlds, it feels like we have this incredibly diverse, balanced meta. So thank you for making a great game and for making it the best version that it can be.
Well, I want to give a thanks to everybody who's been tuning in and who's been watching for this one. Without y'all watching, there'd be no reason for us to be talking at all. So since I like talking a lot, thank y'all for listening so much. Any criticism is always welcome. You can throw it at Esportslaw for Bryce, at thatsadmirable for myself. So from myself, from Bryce, and from all the production here that's been taking place and really making this such a fantastic show. Thank y'all so much for the work that's been done. And again, thank y'all for watching so much. We'll see you here next week.